Luka Doncic is officially a Los Angeles Laker, played his first game, and I got the happiest person I know right here, crying tears of joy. Can't believe it. The Lakers, the rich get richer. Sahil, how you doing? Very, very educated, very smart Laker fan up here, but very excited. How you doing?
I'm exuberant. It's everything I could have hoped for. I was a bit worried about him coming back early. I was a little bit like, "Ooh, should we maybe just hold him out until after the All-Star break? Could we just cuz it's two Jazz games. We could just live two Jazz games without it." But after watching LeBron, Austin, and Luka play together, I need this every night. I stack them up back to backs, doesn't matter. Just every game we can possibly smash in from now to the end of the season. I want as much of it as possible. It's cinema.
It is cinema. Okay, take me to the night where the trade breaks. I know my reaction. What was your reaction?
So I was at a friend's place. It was their housewarming, and I was just, I was making conversation and trying to talk to people. And then I felt my phone buzz a few times, but I was like, I can't stop talking to this person. Norms of social niceties. It'd be rude to stop speaking to them. But then my phone just kept buzzing, and I gave myself like a quick glance, and I saw something that said breaking Luka Lakers, and I was like, all right. I thought to myself, do I want to miss this? Is this conversation so important that I miss this? And so I politely excused myself. And as I was walking to a private room, I yelped, and then I jumped hurriedly upside down, and I called every single person I knew that could have insight into Lakers news. And as soon as I could get it confirmed, I was like, oh my God. And I couldn't fathom it. I spent the next 2-3 hours. I couldn't cope with how it could have happened. And I thought to myself, there's no way either team is gonna, like, there's no way this happens. What? There's no way. I couldn't believe it. Like most people, that was my genuine reaction for those 3 hours, and then followed by probably the best night of my life. I was pretty much on dopamine and serotonin for the rest of the night. I slept at 4:15 that night, and I had a good time. I had a good night.
That's awesome, man. No, I was my first thought was also like, first of all, this Lakers Luka thing, I've been talking about it for a while. But to think that it would happen now, no, I could not have seen that coming. Now? I was like, what? Why? Did someone hold Nico Harrison hostage? Like, has Shams been, hacked? Like, what's going on here? So yes. And now, in light of Anthony Davis's injury, although he looked fantastic in that first half.
Yeah.
Incredible. Like, really, really, he had the highest assist percentage of his season in that game, 47%. Previous high was 33% with the Lakers. So clearly they plan to use him a little bit differently. I was just, I don't think there's anything Anthony Davis can do to tilt my opinion of this. It's a 25-year-old perennial MVP candidate landing at the perfect time in the second biggest market in North America. It is nuts. That being said, to the people who did not watch it, I want to take y'all back to the moment that Luka Doncic was announced. And just, as Sahil said here, it was a little bit of cinema. Let's just let this one play out. This is Austin Reeves, Jackson Hayes, the man in the middle, now that Mark Williams trade has fallen through. And that's LeBron James. I was very curious to see who would get announced last. Typically, the guy who gets announced last is still the franchise player, but LeBron read the moment, saw all those 77 jerseys, and decided, nah, this is the Luka moment.
The other guard wears number 77. 6'7", 7th campaign from Slovenia, Luka Doncic.
Insanity. Just insanity. Like, to me, this is like one of the biggest moments in sports history. And yet I know there's some people who are just like, whatever, it's a trade. It's not just a trade. This is not a trade. Like, I have been on the panel for like a week trying to express to people just how insane this moment is. And this is his first basket. A little step back on Walker Kessler. He didn't shoot well tonight. He didn't need to. They didn't need a center tonight. They could have played me at center tonight and probably still would have won this on vibes. It was insane, man. What did you see out there? And there was a lot of questions coming into the game. What would Austin Reeves' role be? What would LeBron's role be? How do you have three somewhat ball dominant players? But I think I saw a lot of Austin Reeves the basketball tonight. I saw a lot of Jackson Hayes alley-oops. Yeah.
That man is going to get paid extremely disproportionately to his NBA talent.
Is he an expiring?
He isn't expiring. He's going to get 26.
A real winner.
The literal real winner of this trade. It is the real winner of the Mark Williams situation is undoubtedly Jackson Hayes. He's going to get 48 minutes a night of premier playmaking no matter what. And I think the thing that I'm a very pro keep Austin person. And I think the part of it is if you take Austin Reeves out of the equation and you just have Luka Doncic and LeBron James, it's still an exceptional offense. It's still going to be an offense that generates good looks pretty much every possession down. But the thing that makes it special when you have three creators is I tried to go through the only other time I can see three people who create on their own for themselves at this rate was like KD, Kyrie, and Harden, and they played 17 games together over the course of like 2.5 years. And those 17 games.
Do you remember the net rating in those 17 games? Yeah, it's insane because again, like when I'm watching, like there was a play specifically. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up. I literally said this is Showtime. Where was it? Yeah, there was Dirk Nowitzki in attendance. That was cinema in and of itself. There's a lot of plays here. Luka playing defense.
I think you're talking about the one that was Luka to LeBron to Hayes. Yeah,
this one right here. I mean, the court processing to see this entire play through. Now, this is no big deal. These guys will make this play in their sleep. But the quick, if you just run the court, I mean, people talk about, needing better players. The players you have are still NBA players. NBA players can make open dunks. Most of them can make open threes. So tonight I saw a lot of Gabe Vincent balling out. Saw a lot of, primary creation and secondary creation from Austin Reeves. Saw a lot of rim runs. I mean, Vando, for as flawed a player as he is offensively, he can still dunk the basketball. Rui Hachimura now hopefully will be forced to make less decisions in the half court, which could be good, right? Like there will be buyout candidates as well, right? There's so much, that this changes. And then, recently been talking about archetypes. What is the value of a jumbo creator who processes the game at this level? And it's like, does that matter how bad his defense is? Does it matter? Like when you have a person who's like a human cheat code, cannot be guarded one-on-one, regardless of, I don't think Luka's in good shape right now. He's not.
He isn't. I mean, there was one possession where you could see, it was actually quite funny. I think it was a 2-on-2 heading back towards Utah. And Luka was level with the last guy. And the second he saw that everyone was like exerting themselves, he started walking. And I chuckled to myself because I was like, that's a guy who hasn't played in a month and change. But I will say that Luka's defense, although flawed, I admit not a great defender by any means, has been much improved this season. Like from editing out those first couple weeks of the season where he was kind of building up to it after a long summer of whatever. His deflections, I think he has 3.2 deflections per 100 possessions, or it might be per game. That's a pretty good rate. That's a healthy rate for the worst defender on the court. And I will say, even in Dallas, he was never the worst defender on the court. I love Kyrie Irving. He's not.
This is
Kyrie
actually
Irving
wild.
By nature.
Okay, so this is wild. I mean, I don't completely buy him being a 72nd percentile defender. I think that's inflated to hell. but he's not as bad as people say he is. He's really not. I mean,
And a
jeez.
big part of that is size, right? 6'7" with an innate ability to read the game is still 6'7" with an innate ability to read the game. He
Not just
rebounds the ball
6'7".
well.
Look at his wingspan. He's
Oh
got
yeah,
really long
no.
arms.
Yeah, he's got real lungs. And I think one of the things that these defensive metrics weigh very heavily is defensive rebounding. And he's always been a good defensive rebounder. So he
Right.
will grade out well in metrics. Now, what people are going to point at is like, oh, well, in isolation, da 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 da. Guys, Steph Curry won 4 championships. Steph Curry, I promise you, is not a more, especially in 2015, is not a more stout ISO defender than Luka Doncic. There are defensive schemes that you can employ. There is a way to cover for your best players' disadvantages. That's how basketball works. There's 5 defenders on the court for a reason. If every possession was one-on-one, every NBA player would score. No NBA players can stop other NBA players. It's just a matter of space. If you give NBA players space, they will torch you no matter what. You could take the worst offensive player in the league. Andre Roberson can get buckets on another good defender if you give him the full court. That's how
completely
the
agree.
quality of offensive talent.
Yeah, it was a really a nail biter in the first quarter where the
Close one.
Lakers were
Really.
82.4% favored to win, nearly smoked this lead. 10-8, they were down, big deficit, and proceeded to mollywop, I think is the right word, the Jazz by 34, 35 at one point. I'm pretty sure the biggest lead tonight was 34 points. And the Jazz's biggest lead was 2, which was the previously alluded to. Yeah, I mean, the Jazz are a terrible basketball team. And to anyone wondering, were they trying to tank this game? I mean, no, because
They played their
Deni,
players. They just, and again, you can believe in Isaiah Collier. I think Isaiah Collier is probably going to be a good NBA player, but it's just, I think I saw it today. Isaiah Collier is a 2nd percentile turnover guy, and he is an awful scorer at this point in his career. They play Keontae George 25 minutes a night. Keontae George is a bad NBA player right now, like a really bad NBA player.
yeah.
You
Tell
can
them, man. These fans, these Raptor fans, were absolutely like they were standing for Keontae George at
Keontae
the
George.
last draft.
Wow. All right.
I think he's ass. Like I think he's a
I
terrible.
think Keontae George is not good.
Like there's so many things that are wrong with his game right now that I'm like, if any one of these things works out properly, at best he's a 13th guy. It's a lot of unearned opportunity. Like I think they've hit with their 2nd round pick this year. He's pretty okay. Like he's a pretty good player, right? But
Filipowski?
yeah,
Oh yeah.
like he can shoot. He has a role in the NBA. He's not going to be a star, but he is what he is.
I think what they're going to start doing is they're going to start giving more minutes to Bryce Sensabaugh. I mean, we do not have to talk about the Jazz, but moving forward, they should go to Isaiah Collier, Bryce Sensabaugh as their primary on-ball option.
Panel today, they said they're still an NBA team, and I'm just like, if you say so, like if you say the Jazz are an NBA team, sure. I mean, first of all, like there's so many layers to this. It feels like I'm unpacking Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance. Like there's nuance on nuance on nuance. Danny Ainge helped facilitate a deal to land the Lakers Luka Doncic. Like I feel like I'm drinking Celtic tears here. That's exactly what you're drinking right there. Is that Celtic tears in there? I mean, that's just crazy. So, and the first game that Luka plays is a blowout loss against his rebuilding, if we want to call it that, Utah Jazz. Oh, yikes. I don't know.
Yeah, they're just a bad team. I don't think anyone learns anything very interesting about how good the Lakers are for this season from this game. And I don't think anyone should look at this season and be like, oh, well, now we know the Lakers are good. No. We learned literally nothing. We learned that Luka Doncic is alive, that there wasn't some like death heart problem that was going to end his career, and that's why he got traded out of Dallas. We know that he's a alive and living basketball player. That's the only thing we learned today.
Right.
Pretty much everything else you could have figured out before.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, a couple of things I wanted to hit on. One, obviously, I want to talk about the Mark Williams trade falling through and what your thoughts are, because I have a lot of thoughts about that. Number 2, the Toronto Raptors traded for a former Laker, number 2 overall pick, Brandon Ingram. I would love to hear your recollection because to those who don't know, Sahil has been, a lifelong Laker fan and probably has a lot of insights into Brandon's early career and just the type of person he is, and how things went in those first few years as a Laker, and then obviously you've watched him with, I'm sure, some interest as a Pelican.
Quite a
So
bit, actually. Yeah.
So to anyone who's like, hey, this is a Raptor pod. Yeah, I mean, yes, but this is a moment in history, and I wanted to encapsulate my thoughts on this. And my thoughts are told you so. Ha 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 ha. No. My thoughts are honestly, this is great. Luka in Los Angeles makes sense. It has always made sense. As much as I, somehow just, again, as a team that has lost a couple of free agents to big markets, there is a little bit of, Laker envy for sure, but I'm not generally an envious person. So at this moment, I'm just happy that Luka got out of that trash ass organization that is the Dallas Mavericks. What they have tried to do to him and what they have said about him,
The smear campaign, unreal.
it is relentless. It is relentless for a guy, not a guy who spent the last two years sulking on the IR, a guy who less than 8 months ago was bleeding in the finals, a finals that he carried you to. His knee was bleeding. I will never understand how they did this. And the trust can never be restored with this front office and this ownership group. I don't care. If I'm a Mavericks fan, I'm boycotting literally every single game until they sell the team. And of course, that's probably the conspiracies, right? But
I've been reading
hate,
all of them.
yeah,
I have been reading every single one of them, and I am down the rabbit hole in the sense where I'm consuming them. Now, obviously, I don't think that it's extremely probable that that's what it was, but I will say one thing. I think you mentioned this a few days ago, the Nash kid thing, and then you look at how they've just refused to pay guys. And I saw someone say, what if in 2014 Dirk wasn't willing to take the cut? Like if Dirk was, but that's insane. What organization? How can you even think of doing that? I want to say one thing. People might the Lakers are a prestigious organization. We are not a very high payroll organization. We incur this cost to keep stars after they're washed because that's what we think is the right thing to do. I'm not saying that your franchise have to do. I do think it is, but I'm not saying every franchise has to do it the same way the Lakers do because we're the Lakers. But I'm saying that it's not like we aren't afforded the opportunity to do this because, we're the Lakers. We make so much money. Our billionaires look for every chance to cut costs all the time, constantly. We are not an organization that spends a ton on coaches. We don't do our best to put the best product on the court out, but we do maintain our relationship with superstars because that's how you win in the NBA.
Look, I could write I was going to say I could write an essay. I could write a book on everything that has been wrong with how the Lakers have been run as a franchise, as an organization for the last 18 years, 17 years, 14 years, maybe it's been a little bit more recent. There's a lot of, impulsive moves, a lot of, Bush League stuff that I feel like really high class organizations, the best organizations in the league probably don't do. However, you're right. They did pay their stars. They did pay Kobe, right? They didn't, granted, there was certainly some talk about Kobe getting traded at some point, and it almost happened a couple times. But in the end, you preserve that legacy. Why do you preserve the legacy? Is it because Kobe Bryant is worth that money at the very end of his career? First of all, yeah, from a marketing perspective, he is worth that, and he's worth it from your franchise. But on-court production may have declined, just like for the Raptors, for instance, right? Like Kyle Lowry's on-court production declined. There's a lot of players where their on-court production has declined towards the end of their career, but you still maintain that relationship because they're franchise icons. Most importantly, it is a loud message to the rest of the league that this is what I will do to you if you ever become my franchise icon. What the Dallas Mavericks have managed to do to Luka makes me, as an agent, never want my client to go there. If I'm Derek Lively's agent, my first thought, I've talked to a lot of agents, I've talked to a lot of trainers. they have intel on which organizations operate above the belt, which organizations are good at communicating with agents, which organizations are good at, keeping trainers involved, which organizations, ghost players right before a trade, which ones are communicative. There's a couple of organizations right now, Dallas and Milwaukee. If I'm somebody, if I'm an agent, I have a client, he's a high profile client, I'm pushing my team and my player away from those two teams. That's it.
And that's the story of how the Mavericks have gone for some time now, and there's no scope of that changing as of right now. I think as far as we can pivot to Mark Williams now if you want, because I don't really have anything else to say about Dallas. I hope they embrace Anthony Davis and Max Christie. I know they won't because of the circumstances they arrived, but
Max played really well tonight.
yeah,
Max 15 points off the bench
is
in a loss.
Basketball player. I think if people could look at them in a vacuum and just be like, here's two guys who have come to the organization. They didn't force this. They didn't do anything here, but they will never receive the love and the adoration that they deserve from the city that they're in because of the circumstances that they arrived. And it's unfortunate. And it sucks for AD and it sucks for Max Christie, who's 22 now. I think he's turning 22 soon. He's super like a kid. And he's just going to get crapped on for his entirety in Dallas because he's going to be the guy that got here traded for Luka. And it's
I think Max will be immune to some of that. I think it's Anthony Davis who will take the brunt of it, partially because I think Max Christie was like a bonus. He's not really being talked about. We're not really debating Max Christie versus Luka. We're debating AD versus Luka. And the Adelsons haven't put out messages about how great Max Christie is. They really just talked about Luka. And so I think for this trade to even come up to 50% value, Max would have to become like a borderline all-star. And then maybe you'll get to 50% of the value of what Luka meant to the Dallas Mavericks and what he meant to the fans. And I think there's a lot of fans out there who maybe don't even empathize with Dallas Mavericks fans. I do. Because you imagine that you had a 19-year-old come into the league, and then for 5 straight years after his rookie season, he was finishing top 5, top 7, top 10 in MVP voting. Last year, topped out of top 3. He's dropping 72, 73 points. Led your team to the finals, and just half a season later he's gone. You traded him not because he asked out, not because he had a career-ending injury, but because he was a little pudgy, drank a few beers, and your organization didn't feel like he was worth the supermax. It is unprecedented shit. I called it the worst trade in NBA history. I've actually since started calling it the Great Dallas Robbery, and I hope that sticks. I hope people call it that 50 years from now when they write a book about this, because they inevitably will. Anyways, Mark Williams. There's some controversy here. It's not as cut and dry. So apparently what happened was the Lakers decided the Great Dallas Robbery was great. So let's overpay a little bit, in my opinion, for a rim running, 7'2" center who can competently defend the rim sometimes, who hasn't played 100 games in his NBA career, but was almost a lottery pick some years ago, 15th overall to the Charlotte Hornets. Let's, see if this thing that PJ Washington became for Dallas, like this, when players leave, there's a losing situation, could they potentially become better? Okay, he fails his medical. The trade was Austin Reeves plus Cam Reddish plus. Sorry, I'm just gonna mute. I'm gonna mute your mic because I'm getting feedback. Sorry, if you don't mind just muting your mic when. Yeah. Okay, so it's Dalton Connect plus a first round pick, 2031 plus a pick swap 2030 plus on top of that Cam Reddish for Mark Williams. Mark Williams ends up failing his physical. The Lakers rescind the trade, and now it's in contention by the Charlotte Hornets, who obviously, this is very embarrassing for them, and this plummets the trade value of Mark Williams. So what are your thoughts on this and how it looks for you guys? Because obviously the trade deadline is passed and you don't have any more time to make trades.
So I'm not heartbroken over it. I think that as unfortunate as it is that the trade deadline passed, it is what it is. I really won't lose too much sleep over it. Like, we get 2031 back. Dončić in 2031 for anyone who's near a minimum salary next season. It is what it is. Like Dončić is inevitably going out the door. You can't have this many defensive liabilities and play next to Luka. It doesn't make any sense. The 2031 pick will obviously be up for auction whenever we can next, which would be the summer. But Mark Williams was, as soon as the trade hit, dopamine, the Shams notification hits, you go crazy. I said, ring me now, you idiots. And then I sat and thought about it, and I was like, okay, Mark Williams played 83 games. He's been in the league 3 years. Mark Williams, I went and then watched lots of Charlotte games, which was torture, personally, because they are not good at playing basketball. And I think that if you're going to be a technically unrefined defender, you have to make up for it with motor. You have to be a tier 1 motor guy, and he's not. His technique and drop is extremely lazy and sloppy. He basically sits near the restricted circle for 20 seconds in a shot clock. It's a miracle he doesn't get more 3-second calls. A lot of goaltending calls. He's not the twitchiest jumper either, which is a concern for me, particularly when it comes to a playoff setting. And I've long since said you don't move either of the next of our 2029, which went for Luka, which I was fine with, and the 2031 pick for anyone who is not a proven playoff performer. Now, you take a swing for a guy like Mark Williams, fine, but now that it's come back, please, please, please only trade for guys who you've seen it in the playoffs with. And I think that the reason that that's so important for me is because we've made the deals where we go for guys who have not yet proved it in the playoffs in the hopes that they will, like D'Lo, perfect example, where it was like, hey, it's a talent swing. If he hits, he hits. We're getting off the Russ contract is really the concern here. It did it. He was awful in the playoffs. And I have a lot of love for D'Lo. He was drafted to the Lakers. Him and Brandon Ingram were two of my favorite Lakers in that early Laker era. It was one of those like young Laker, like, hey, we're here to have fun. And it was fun. It was cool to see them go out. It was cool to see young guys on the court. But it doesn't work to do that, to take that swing. And I think that the first report that came out was that Charlotte had obfuscated some information about Mark Williams' medical. If that's the case, I think Charlotte deserves sanctions. I think that as a league, you absolutely cannot let teams manipulate medical history in order to get these deals done, because what it will do is it will crater your trade deadline. The trade deadline is a lucrative part of the NBA cycle. Trading in general is one of the things that we as a sport have over other sports. It's a thing that our sport's the best at. And if you let it get bogged down by these medical reports things, then you risk ruining one of the things that we like about this sport. And I think that if Charlotte obfuscated information, they should get sanctions. Now, if we, the Lakers, faultily failed his medical because we had buyer's remorse, we should get sanctions as well. I'm not a practitioner of dishonesty and dirty negotiation. I think that in the end, it is a game. It is I understand there's lots of money going around here, but you negotiate in good faith. You do not go to someone and say, hey, yeah, we're good on this deal. And then you rescind it. And then later in the offseason, you go back for Mark Williams without 2031. You don't do that. That would be extremely unethical, in my opinion, from the Lakers. And I would prefer that it would have been Charlotte who did the shady stuff and not us.
Naturally. Looking at this, where are your proven playoff performers? So you tell me where I'm wrong when I say a guy is a proven playoff performer. LeBron, Luka, DFS, Austin Reeves.
As someone who's watched every Laker playoff game for like the last 6 years and every Austin Reeves playoff possession, he has consistently actually been better defensively in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. And he he's an obscenely efficient player just because of how much he gets to the
Mm-hmm.
line. He's like 6% above league average for 3 years running now,
Right.
true shooting wise, and it carries over into the playoffs. I think he's a very good playoff performer.
Yeah, I've been very, very impressed by the skill development and just how he's manipulating in the pick and roll. And I think he's a fantastic, fantastic player. I did not see this type of upside from him 2 years ago. Gabe Vincent, weirdly enough.
I will say proven playoff performer, and I am a very pro Gabe. I recognize Gabe's value before we traded D'Lo. I have recognized Gabe's value since last year when he went 0 of 32 in a row. Like he missed 30 straight threes. He did the Houston Rockets thing in Game 7 by himself over a 6-game stretch, and it was
Right.
torture. And I was like, but there's no way someone was shooting well before and now they're this bad. It's regression to the mean. It'll come back, I promise.
Well, if
And
Scottie
for the
Barnes
last
misses
month,
2022 in the next 3-4 games, he'll be right there by himself too. No, I hear you. Honestly, I am a generational Gabe Vincent hater. I can't stand him. The only thing I like about him is that he's Nigerian. Like literally, the only thing. When the Raptors were rumored to be interested in him, I actually gave up on my Dennis Schroeder hate just because I was happy it wasn't Gabe Vincent that we signed. I just don't value him.
wow. Yeah,
But today watching him, he was balling. So, cool. He is a playoff performer. He is someone who's had, a couple of deep runs, and it matters that you can adjust to that. Okay, that's 5.
that's it. I mean, Maxi Kleber.
I'm looking at the rest of your roster, and I don't see another one.
Maxi Kleber, for all intents and purposes, is probably not going to play a game in a Lakers jersey. It says he'll be reevaluated in 6 weeks. He had foot surgery like last week. Even if he gets up to physical par, he'll be healthy like by game 1 of round 1. It would be insane for us to expect to lean on him when it comes to Western Conference Finals, and he's played 0 games since February 1st.
Right.
It'd be crazy. I'm hopeful, of course, because
Right.
it'd be nice to have another good player, but odds are he's not coming back.
So
Christian Wood,
you're rolling the dice, really, in my opinion, on one of Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, probably Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Christian Koloko to be a surprise pop, and that's tough. So I'm thinking buyout market is going to be very kind to y'all, because literally, if I'm a player, I'm calling my agent like, get me here, because this is box office. Everybody's watching this, and if I want to pop as a free agent, I'm gonna have 3 creators creating the most open shots of my life. I'm going to Lakers. Like seriously, if I was a player, I would want to go to the Lakers right now. I've probably never said that in my life. I've never said that. I haven't been overly complimentary of the Lakers. I just want to be clear. And the people listening to this be like,
figured that's
wow,
probably the case because you're
Rob's
not
like
a Lakers fan, so you're not going to be complimentary of the Lakers. I think a lot of Lakers fans are aware of the fact that no other fan base really likes us, and I get it.
Cool. I'm supporting 100%. I mentioned it on the panel. I'm like, for the until future notice, I'm officially rooting for the Lakers. I have gotten past Kobe Bryant putting 81 points on our head. I have gotten past the Sacramento Kings series, the controversial one, where I was very, very much rooting for my countrymen, Vlade Divac and Peja Stojakovic, to get through, and then watch the refs pull some bullshit ass calls. And I think I've pretty much gotten over, all the trades that have pretty much favored the Lakers throughout history. Chris Paul trade notwithstanding, like the Pau Gasol trade, all that stuff. No, I think I'm over it at this point. It doesn't make sense. I think I'm going to convert myself to being a Celtic hater, because you got to hate somebody. So yeah, like, let's just pile it over. They're too good at what they do. Although it pains my heart very much to hate on any team that has Drew Holiday and Derek White on it. So I don't know. I just feel like they get gassed up too much. So fuck 'em.
I totally agree. I think one of the things for me is I grew up in LA. I'm not in LA right now or anymore, but I for a good stretch of time, there was like that whole Clippers noise. It was very irritating to me. And so they're the team that I most actively hate on. Celtics, it's a little more distant,
Funny.
right? I only see them twice a year.
Y'all live in your
I
own
can avoid
country,
them.
basically. Y'all just live in your own country out there, right? Like you got 4 teams in California, and you all hate like the other teams in California.
Yeah, so I moved to San Francisco recently, and so I've been surrounded by Warriors fans pretty much nonstop. And a guy come up to me today, and he's like, "So what do you think about Jimmy?" I'm like, "Oh, you think I'm a Warriors fan? Brother, tonight's the night. Tonight's my night. I could not care less about Jimmy. As of February 10th, it is the Luka era. Don't even look at me unless you're bringing his name up. Just avoid it entirely. Walk over to your desk. Don't even ignore me."
This comment right here, we can all hate the Mavs now. That is true. But you know what? They're basically going to be they're going to be basically a G League team in a couple of years when Anthony Davis has like 2 more injuries. So,
come
you know,
on, don't do that.
I would never wish on that for Anthony Davis. I like Anthony Davis. I've always liked Anthony Davis, but you know, like I just don't like that organization. I mean, at this point, I'm just creating mock trades for them to pull off. Like, what's next? Like the other day, I was watching Jeff Green, 38-year-old Jeff Green dunking all over the Raptors, turning back the hands of time. And I'm like, man, is Nico Harrison somewhere out there watching this being like, if I had known that 38-year-old Jeff Green could do this, I would have traded like 2 first-round picks for this guy. Like, that dude is nuts. Anyways, that notwithstanding.
You got to have someone to hate. And I think we should group together, and it should be, who could it be? I think it should be the Clippers. Really, I really do. I hate the Clippers.
You may, but I cannot hate the Clippers.
I think you should. I think you should hate them
former Raptor Norman Powell. Cannot hate a team with Norm on it.
I currently hate Norman Powell. Norman Powell.
Boo this man. Boo. I've never asked anyone to dislike my video. Dislike this video. Booing Norman Powell.
Listen. I want to say 2 seasons straight, I watched a lot of Clippers games because I have an uncle who's a Clippers affiliated guy, and he was like, just blah blah blah, help me, blah, blah, blah. So I was watching the Clippers, and I saw Norman Powell for the entire season to shoot 34%. And you could look at those games and it's like 34. And then the Los Angeles Lakers come up on the schedule and he's 68% from deep and he has 34 points by the end of the third quarter. And the Lakers are down 29. And for years, Kawhi Leonard didn't miss a shot against my team. For years, Norman Powell was at fault for many Lakers losses, and I will never forgive him for it. I'll never forgive him for it. It will always be hate Norman Powell from my end.
There's too many figures associated with the Clippers for me to hate. So number 1, Jeff Van Gundy. I'm a New York kid. I can never hate on Jeff Van Gundy. Number 1, brought our team to the finals. That damn defense was amazing. Number 2, I cannot hate on Kawhi Leonard. Bounce. Yeah, in. Okay, so that dude is like goated for life for me. And yeah, 3rd, I can't hate on Norman Powell. There's just too many guys, man. Ivica Zubac was born in I was born in Croatia. He was born in Croatia. I cannot hate. Anyways, okay,
I accept it.
Okay, we agree to disagree on.
Do you want to pivot to Brandon Ingram?
Yes, I do. Okay, my reaction. So initially when I heard this, I was like, RJ Barrett's probably going out the other way, which made me less okay. Like, I was fine with the deal, honestly. I decided that I was actually going to start talking about Devin Booker to the Raptors because I thought there's no way I think the Suns should actually trade for Devin. The Suns should trade Devin Booker.
On the timeline.
The Raptors can make this deal. And I just thought, I'm like, okay, like, Brandon Ingram, I don't know how I feel about this, but I've been a long time Brandon Ingram supporter. I used to literally trade him to the Raptors in 2018, 2017, 2019. Every time I fire up 2K, somehow I found a way to get Brandon Ingram to the Raptors. In fact, the other day, I dug up a copy of NBA 2K18 where I had traded Brandon Ingram and drafted Scottie Barnes, and I had them paired as a championship core going forward. So this is just the craziest shit for me. I mean, think about where we are. We're in NBA 2K25 territory. I fired up NBA 2K18. That's how much. So I believed in this guy for a long time. I like big wings. I like big wings who can score. I like big wings who can pass. And,
Well, you're a Raptors fan.
and I'm a Raptors fan. Yeah. So I love his fit with Scottie. I think he's going to help Scottie in so many ways because Scottie's been a bit of a mid-post merchant this year. Like he's really been upping those percentages. Like the last few weeks have been kind of like, okay, teams are really, really ganging up on him in that territory of the court. But like overall, he's been stupidly efficient in that zone and borderline unstoppable to the point where if he puts his shoulder down, takes one dribble and turns, I'm like, this is going in. Like I'm surprised when it doesn't go in at this point. As long as he gets his footwork right, it's usually in. So I think he can learn a lot from Brandon Ingram about smoothing out his game. And I think Brandon Ingram probably learn a lot about moving without the basketball and probably, defense from Scottie. So what did you see from Brandon in those first few years? Because I'm sure as a fan of what was at the time a terrible team, the Lakers, getting the number 2 pick and a guy who was very much in conversations for the number 1 pick. People don't remember that. Like there was a lot of conversation, Brandon Ingram or, Ben Simmons scoring upside or, this sort of competent LeBron clone. So take me through like just what went right and wrong for Brandon Ingram for the Lakers.
So the first thing I remember was hearing the KD comp. Like that was immediately out of the draft. I remember it was almost billed like, would you rather have a LeBron type or would you rather have a KD type? And I was like, well, I mean, personally, I'd rather have a LeBron type, but this isn't that. That's neither of.
Oh, you're cutting out really bad.
These players.
Oh, Sahil, you're cutting out really bad. Okay, I'm gonna try to drop out and come back. Sahil, if you're still watching this, try to drop out and come back. You're frozen, so your audio is coming in like chops. Hold on, let's try this. Better? No. Damn! Just as we started talking about Brandon Ingram, just try to step out and come back. Hermes saying, "Oof, the internet must be dying." It is possible. It is possible his internet is dying, but he is still in the studio. I have no idea. Anyways, overall, my thoughts of this game, while we hopefully wait for Sahil to come back. I hope he can come back. My overall thoughts on... Wait, are you... Hold on. No, he dipped out. Let's see if he comes back. My overall thoughts in this game were, Luka was not super efficient in this game at all, but I don't think he needed to be. I think this game was really just a vibe check, if I'm being honest. Like, I mean, they faced off a team that just really didn't play with enough force at least. Oh, we got Sahil back. Okay. Hey, what's up? Better?
I was talking for a good few minutes, and I don't know where you cut out for me.
Check your audio.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be shot here. Give me 2 minutes. I'm gonna call right back in. Give me 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So overall, like this game, I mean, it was a blowout from wire to wire, right? The Lakers did not shoot necessarily all that well from 3, 35.7%. But, some guys shot very hot from the field, including that dude, Gabe Vincent. The Lakers, to those of you who don't know, have been extremely good defensively lately. Gabe Vincent shot 3 for 8. He felt like he shot more like he felt like he made every single 3, I thought. But he was very impactful when he was on the court. Jordan Goodwin also had 17 points. Didn't even talk about Jordan Goodwin. I mean, they're just a locked-in team defensively. I think LeBron is also, to some extent, turning the clock back a little bit. Sahil, are you back? Okay. He's on mute, so... Worked? Okay. Oh, man. Your audio is glitching so hard right now. You sound like aliens have taken over your laptop. I don't know what to do. If you want to call in with your phone or something, I don't know. You can try to call in with your phone, and we'll just get your thoughts on Brandon Ingram. Call it a day. Okay, yeah. So, anyways, like overall, like what do I expect from this team going forward? Do I think Jackson Hayes? I'll remind you that LeBron James in his prime won championships with Joel Anthony as his starting center. I mean, if you're a center playing with 2 to 3 dynamic paint finishers, and I'll remind you again, the last game that the Lakers faced off against the Indiana Pacers, a fully healthy, pretty healthy Indiana Pacers team with Pascal Siakam and with Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, that team beat the Lakers. Sorry, that team beat the Pacers, and they got like a 40 ball from Austin Reeves. So I mean, this is a team that's locked in. I'm not a huge fan of JJ Redick as a coach, but he has been good. I mean, overall, the Lakers have bought in defensively. They've been one of the better defenses. And I think LeBron is sort of, he's sort of reinvigorated. I wonder, very much how much LeBron knew about this deal before, this surge. I wonder if he knew if it was in the cards, because allegedly this has been in the works for quite some time. And yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, like, to anyone who knows me off air, I have definitely mentioned Luka wanting to go to the Lakers to you over the last year, for sure. Like, I've talked about it with a lot of people. So, they can plant the stories they want to plant. They can say, oh, Luka was caught off guard. He bought a house in Dallas, blah, 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 blah. I don't buy any of it. Luka was eventually going to be a Laker, and I'm going to stand on that. He was always going to be a Laker. I didn't think it was going to happen at this point. I think the Dallas Mavericks just pulled the plug a little too early on that one. So, Tariq, Rob, why are you not a fan of Redick? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I think it's largely his personality. Kamish Baldo Pencilhead, also new. Who is Baldo Pencilhead? Oh, got you. Okay. I was like, who's that? And it's like Adam Silver. No shit. Okay. Penn, do you think Franz is better than Scottie now? I know you'll never budge on Cade, but look at what Franz is doing. No, but I think Franz is a lot better than Cade. And I think Franz is better than Paolo. And I think Franz is better than Schengen. And I think Franz is better than everybody else in the 2021 class. I think I would actually, I could have a real conversation between Franz and whatchamacallit, between Franz and God, who am I thinking about here? I could have a real conversation between Franz and Evan Mobley. Sahil, what's up?
Yes. All right. Good. This is better. Okay. I hope not too much of what I was saying before got cut out, but the thing that I was really trying to say was the first thing I remember was the KD comp. And what became immediately apparent was that he was not going to be Kevin Durant. The scoring issues were prevalent throughout his first NBA season, and it was like he could not shoot whatsoever. And it was really concerning because I was like, if you're billed as a KD prospect, first thing I expect from you is shooting. The number one thing is scoring. But throughout the season, he was a really good defender for a rookie, and he was a very impressive passer for his size, especially as a rookie. And those are my two biggest like criteria points. If you're 6'9", which he was listed at as a rookie, and you're a good rookie defender and you're a good rookie playmaker, you have hope in this league. And then year two was a bit of a development for the three ball. I think that was the year that Lonzo and LeBron came in. And so a lot of his duties were shifted to off ball, and it became a lot about, hey, can you develop a jumper? Can you space the floor? Yada, yada, yada. And he was kind of taken off of creation duties. But that offseason, he was shipped. And I think that my biggest takeaway of his time in LA was that he was quiet but loved. There were so many people who said that I love playing basketball, Brandon Ingram. I love that guy. And there's that famous one where I think he's with Rondo, and I think it's Chris Paul does something, or James Harden does something, and he immediately squares up with him. And I do watch MMA, but I'm not advocating for violence in all basketball games. But I do think that there's a bit of needle in a physical sport like basketball, and you do need guys who won't shirk the physical duties of the game. And Brandon Ingram, for one, has never shirked the physical duty of the game, despite being a smaller guy. He's slight of frame. He does not have the ability to move guys easily, but he will always embrace the physical aspect of it. And I want to say that last season I thought was one of his better defensive seasons. I think if you hadn't seen him have that playoff series, which I've heard a lot of reasons for why it happened.
Okay.
If you hadn't seen that playoff series, you would have gone away from that and been like, yo, BI really stepped it up this year with like Zion missing 80 games in total or something. It was something ridiculous. Like, Zion barely played last year, right?
Sure.
And BI was a big part of that team making the playoffs. And I think that the number one thing you're going to see is he is weirdly passive. There's moments where he like enters and exits games. The biggest example of a guy being passive is like Cody Williams from this last draft. He was picked 10th by the Jazz. You could watch a game of Cody Williams playing 36 minutes and you notice him for like 10 at most because he just ghosts in and out of games. And BI has a bit of that gene where he'll ghost in and out of a game. He'll show up for a few minutes and then it'll be like, yo, is he on the bench? No, he's just spotted up in the corner. And you can say maybe that's Willie Green, maybe it was BI. It's kind of tough to differentiate them because we've never seen him without it. But I will be paying close attention to what I assume is now next season of the Raptors, and whether Darko utilizes him in the same way, because I think there's a lot of good to be had with two jumbo creators. I mean, we spent a lot of time just talking about LeBron and Luka. Scottie and BI are no LeBron and Luka, but the ability to generate advantages and then exploit it for your teammates will be a huge part of the philosophy of the Toronto Raptors going into this next NBA season. And I would be encouraged if I see a jump in BI's defense, because that is what I would anticipate. I think he's a really good ISO scorer. I think he's a good wing PNR player. He's struggles a little bit when he's in the post passing out of doubles sometimes, but he gets doubled a lot. And I think if IQ has a bounce back offensive season next year, if RJ continues a good offensive season from him, and Scottie has a bounce back shooting year next year, BI's not getting doubled. And if BI's not getting doubled, he will be shredding single coverages.
So here's how I see this playing out, and I'm curious for your thoughts. So I would see with Scottie's progression as a scorer in the mid post and just the physical nature of how strong he is. You said Brandon Ingram can't move players. Yeah, Scottie can. Scottie with space to attack a single player is buckets. He's even trying to do this rip through, sort of foul baiting shit that James Harden has perfected in the last game against Houston a couple times. And that was encouraging to see. Obviously, Scottie is like, so someone was asking me the other day, there's been a lot of talk recently about Scottie's scoring package, how he doesn't really have one, or at least one that he can remember or go to consistently. And I'll agree with that. I've often said that I would say Scottie's ball skills as a scorer are actually on par with some AAU kids that I see. Like even watching someone like Austin Reeves, I can so clearly see like the pace that he plays with, how he can gather one step. When you watch Luka, it's obviously on another level. Like he can move as slow as molasses and he's still getting past you somehow. And the second he gets that one step, he bumps and he's so strong. I do see progression towards that in games from Scottie. And then there are games where he's content to just sort of camp out at 3, launch them, and it's insult to injury that he doesn't make very many. He's shooting like 26% from 3. And, people get really upset about that. But the passing cannot be understated. Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes are on different planets as passers. Brandon is good. I think Scottie is great. Defensively, there's a giant gap here. So the way I would see this is Brandon can lift second units better than any player on this team, which is to say, I think Brandon is a floor raising player, whereas I think Scottie is more of a ceiling raising player with competent players around them. And so putting Scottie in a more prime role, like a mini Jokic, in the middle of the court, and say, okay, attack your matchup. The second anything happens here, there's Brandon Ingram, to bail you out at the top. If the ball swings, and the Raptors inevitably end up in one of these offensive droughts, there's a player who can actually create a shot in a tight window, who has a super high release and 4 seconds to go. What the Raptors don't have right now is that 4 seconds to go player. They masqueraded it a little bit with Gary Trent in previous years, which is a depressing thought, but it is true. I promise you, it did happen.
Gary Trent Jr. was your guys' 4-second guy.
Yeah, like in a lot of
damn.
in a lot of times where the clock would sort of run low, that was like your bailout guy.
Was that because
right?
Gary Trent was like, "Yo, hit my line," or was it because that was genuinely the yo, we got nothing?
Well, I mean,
Gary
it was
paid me.
between Gary and Pascal, right? Between those two guys. And I mean, neither of those guys, in my opinion, can get to their shot as cleanly as Brandon Ingram. I think Pascal's a better player than Brandon Ingram. Don't get me wrong. Yes, I do. I'm not stupid. But I do think that Brandon Ingram is more talented than Pascal Siakam. Like when I watch him play, my eye test tells me
100% understand what you mean by that.
yeah, like my eye test tells me that Brandon Ingram is the most talented player on the Raptors right now. Obviously, the impact metrics and my understanding of deeper basketball tells me Scottie Barnes is your best player, and I know Scottie's our best player. But Brandon Ingram is like, from the ball skills perspective and just how quickly he can gather and get into that shot, and how he can punish that single coverage that you're talking about. Like, there really isn't anything else like it. Like, there's RJ Barrett, who kind of just drives in a one directional way into the rim and into contact, regardless of how well he finishes. And, sometimes if he's hitting a shot, he's a great player. And if he's not hitting a shot, he's terrible. There's Scottie Barnes, where, again, like the scoring package is a little bit further away than maybe we thought it would be fourth year. But I think he's still a hell of a really, really, really good player. I think he can very well be. I think he's the only player on this team that could project to be a top 10 player in the league at any point. But I think what Brandon can do is I think he can really bail you out of tight situations that your offense inevitably finds itself in. And I think this question that Phoenix plays, Zad brought up, I think it's an interesting thing to point out that Brandon Ingram does not cut at all, 2% frequency on cut plays. I think that Brandon Ingram has been in 2 suboptimal situations.
I think that primarily there is a Willie Green thing. I think that's a New Orleans thing. And the reason that I say that is you look at the lineups that they've run for a few seasons. Either you had Jonas Valanciunas quite literally just parked under the basket, who is essentially a black hole of space. You want, in no way are you going to cut towards the paint when Jonas is sitting there. Or Jonas is spacing, and the guy who's guarding Jonas is sitting in the paint, and you are not going to cut into the space that does not exist. Additionally, when they started doing the whole, like, Herb Jones is basically the center. Yeah, he was the center, but then you were running out like marginal spacing lineups. Like, he never had the opportunity to play with players that could hold the ball and find him on his cut. And I think
Right.
that's one of the reasons that he doesn't cut much. And also, he is a better player when he has the ball in his hands. From an ISO creation standpoint, he's really, really good. Like,
I'm saying like one of the best players in the league from a ISO creation. If you give him a single coverage, he will get a good shot for your team. It is not like a, it's not like a, well, it could be a favorable matchup. No, there is no like real good cover for Brandon Ingram. He's scored on all of them. I think people saw like a couple playoff series. I think it was this last year against OKC, and Lou Dort covered him. Yeah, Lou Dort covered him when he was playing on the court next to some really poor players. Like the Pelicans put out an awful lineup, and Brandon Ingram
Right.
was put in a god awful situation. When he plays next to decent players,
Right.
he's great at scoring. He is the highest double rate of any player over the last 4 seasons. This is a league that has Nikola Jokic, it has Luka Doncic, it has it is a bevy. It is Giannis. It has KD. It has LeBron. There's such a high level of offense talent. And yet, Brandon Ingram was the guy above everyone else who was doubled the absolute most in the NBA over the last few years. And that just tells you how much other coaches respect his scoring ability.
Right. And I mean, look at the release. Like I used to say this about Rasheed Wallace, who's stopping that, right? I saw him standing next to DeMontis Sabonis, and I'm not kidding. I couldn't tell who was bigger. For a second there, I couldn't tell who was bigger. The idea of being functionally coordinated at all at 6'9", especially this functionally coordinated, and believe me, the Raptor fans should remember how badly he torched them. I think for 41 points, he couldn't miss that game. I think that this is a player that has some sneaky upside. And it sounds crazy to say that a 27-year-old has upside, but Darko makes people better. He's made everyone better. He's literally made every single player, even 31-year-old Chris Boucher, got better.
Bruce Brown?
Okay, that's one player he didn't make better.
Because we were excited about Bruce Brown. But I remember I called in, and the day Bruce Brown was traded, I was not at home, and I was like, "Yo, Bruce Brown! Like, we're finally gonna see someone be Scottie for him, so that he can be the offensive creator." And it just, I genuinely can't remember a possession of Bruce Brown as a Raptor. Like, nothing stands out in my mind.
Well, the last 10 games, 9 games prior to the last 5 games. So really, games January 13th till about January 31st, that was the best of Bruce Brown. And the Raptors were like the best team in the league over that stretch. So Bruce is great. Just Bruce never really played for a team that was trying to win. Like, he's not stupid. Like he's going to help. Like, it's unfortunate now that he's in New Orleans that he's also not playing for a team that's trying to win. So he's basically been on back-to-back. Hey, man, Bruce Brown, this is what you get for signing that $23 million deal, bro. Like,
you get your bag up, man.
You get the money, but now you get to spend time camping between, Indiana, Toronto, and New Orleans. That situation just got worse and worse and then worse again. So, I mean, fine. Next year he's going to be a free agent. Maybe he goes somewhere else. But yeah, like, I mean, to anyone, who maybe hasn't watched Brandon Ingram play, like these plays that's his whole career has basically looked like this. So we're talking right down to Kinston to, Duke to, like, this is just who he is. He's a guy who can do this. And it's largely due to footwork, technique, size, ball handling. But I also think it's because he does something like this right there. You see how low his shoulder is? He actually gets his shoulder below the defender, which is something Scottie does every 7 drives. I think Scottie needs to do that more often. It's weird how, like, similar these players can be if they wanted to be, but how different they are because of just how they've developed. Like, the physics of it are the same. 6'9", 7'3" wingspan, but Brandon Ingram, just the technique of it, like the technique of how he scores, how he manipulates, and also it's the deceleration, right?
Yeah, I was
like,
just about to say, like, if you look at the way he slows into his 1-2s,
boom.
it is immediate. And that's probably his biggest benefit of being against. The reason why sometimes guys like Lou Dort bugged him, and mind you, he's had a lot of good games against Lou Dort. Like, for a good period of time, it was known by OKC fans that Lou Dort will get torched by Brandon Ingram. I think this one playoff series has really shifted the perspective on that. But I promise you, there's been a lot of times where Brandon Ingram has scorched OKC. But the thing is, as a guy who operates slowly, he benefits from playing against bigger wings because it kind of doesn't matter that they're big because they can't get to the spot at the same time as him and time up their jump with him and reach the high release with him. And so he's always going to get his look off. The problem with a guy like Lu Dort is that he beats you to the spot because he's quick getting around, he's quick navigating the screen, and he'll beat you to the spot. I mean, he doesn't in this clip, obviously, but that is the issue with a guy like Lu Dort. And once he gets there, you can't really bump him off of it where you're a guy like Brandon Ingram. But if you have someone like a Scottie Barnes or an RJ Barrett or an Emmanuel Quickly who is going to take the quicker matchup, I think it probably won't be Scottie, but one of RJ or IQ will take the quicker athlete defensive or the quicker defender. It opens up a lot of opportunity for BI. The thing I would worry about is that this offense falls into a your turn, my turn situation. Now, I know that's never going to happen in Darko Ball, but it is very much his natural style. It is so BI's way to like halt the offense. And this was sometimes my criticism in New Orleans was that I'm a Zion guy. I still hold out hope that Zion Williamson will get healthy and that when he is healthy, he is a unreal offensive talent.
Right.
The difficulty with that pairing was that there was no table setter. There was CJ McCollum who wanted to get his 20 shots a night. There was Herb Jones who was spacing, brilliant player, but he was just spacing and cutting. And that was one more reason why someone mentioned that BI doesn't cut. It's because with a guy like Herb Jones on the court, Herb Jones has only very recently started shooting very, very well. He was a big cutter. If you look at Herb Jones' frequency for cutting, it was extremely high. You know who else had a really high cut frequency was this guy named Zion Williamson. He cut a lot because he could not shoot for his life. So there was a lot of clogging in that paint for BI to access. It seems like in theory you'd be like, oh yeah, neither are the Pelicans. They got CJ, they got Trey Murphy, they got Herb Jones. They have tons of spacing, right? They really
They had
do.
Jonas Valanciunas and Zion Williamson for the last few years. I mean, also, I think it's worth noting that I think both Scottie and BI will benefit from a stretch big, which they don't have right now. So maybe that will be what the draft will be for. I also think that it's worth noting that I think Scottie can play off of Brandon Ingram when they, in a two-man action. I think they could be very interesting. I mean, teams will naturally switch that, but good luck. I don't know how many teams have
If you
two
have
guys.
two good, like if you have a DFS Vando, then you can switch it. If you have two guys who are like, and I'm only bringing them up because they're on my team and they're the first ones that come to mind, but I can't think of many teams that have two big wings that they trust defensively to take number one options. And that's what these guys will be playing as, right? When you're a defense, you're scheming for two guys that are number one options. And that's the most difficult thing to matchup orient. And I think
Mhm.
if you guys play at a high enough pace, which BI sometimes does and sometimes doesn't, I will cop to that. Cross matching in transition is basically a cheat code. I think you saw a little bit today in the Lakers game where the goal is catch a rebound and just throw it up the court. Because if you can force Walker Kessler to get stuck on Gabe Vincent for a possession. You know what's going to happen is LeBron's going to be like, yo, Gabe, come here. And then he's going to set a quick ghost screen. And then Gabe's going to exit out. And Isaiah Collier's going to be like, oh, crap, I'm going to have to go guard him. And guess what? Now you got Walker Kessler on LeBron with 12 on the shot clock. And that's a good look pretty much every time.
Right.
The idea behind playing faster is not just so you get a good look in transition, but it's that when you don't get that transition look, the defense is disoriented. Right. And I think that Toronto now with two guys who will be able to, I'm not going to say abuse mismatches, but take advantage of mismatches. You have the avenue to play a little faster. Now, how you're going to get those possessions to be stops, I don't know. A stretch big that can defend, those are rare in the league. So let's assume it's a stretch big that can't defend. It's a little too many non-paint protectors, non-defenders on the court to really get stops consistently. But I have a question for you regarding Toronto. You had mentioned that you were glad that it wasn't RJ. I was more on the camp of it has to be RJ. Otherwise, you're paying this quadrant or quartet $180 million to miss the playoffs?
180. How'd you get to 180?
Is it not
Emmanuel quickly makes 32.
32?
Scottie, and it's a flat deal. So that's very important that it ages like fine wine as the cap goes up.
She's got 30, and then RJ's at
27.
I thought it was a lot higher. Huh. That deal was pretty good. So that's 60 from them. And then BI is going to be around 40,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have
Scottie at around 40.
Scottie around 40. So 140, my bad. But so 140 for that quartet.
But the cap is at
It's not that
188
bad.
next year.
Yeah, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah, so it's at 188. I'm not saying it's cheap. I'm certainly not saying it's cheap, especially when you add in Jakob Poeltl at 19.5. But that's also flat. So the Raptors have two deals, which are Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, which are flat. They have a whole bunch of rookies on their roster. Now, obviously, if you end up with like a first or second or third overall pick next year, you're probably going to luxury tax to keep this team together. It's also not completely confirmed if Brandon Ingram's deal is going to start at 40 or if it's going to start closer to 36. I
Right.
actually would think it should start close to 36 because that's literally where he's at right now. A lot of injuries. You know, he made an all-star team, but it was 4 years ago.
I think
Typically,
he'll
these guys do get paid though. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like I don't care if he gets paid. I
I think
trust
he's
him.
gonna get a 1+1. I think he's gonna try
1
his
plus
best.
1.
Or sorry, a 2+1. I think he's gonna go for a shorter deal. I think it behooves him greatly to go for the shorter deal. I know that he has long since felt, and this is another thing. I know he's felt that I'm not welcome here in New Orleans. I'm not loved here as much as I ought to be, because that organization prioritizes Zion as they rightly should have. I don't want any revisionist history when people look at it and they look at it like, well, oh, why'd you go for Zion instead of Bi? Do you remember what it was like peak Zion? Like what that felt like? It was a physical specimen. It's like when we redux the whole like Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid thing. We're like, well, why did you? Well, yeah, even if or the Jimmy Butler Joel Embiid thing, if you want to call it. Why did you prioritize Joel Embiid? Why did you do this? Oh my God, he's injury prone. Yeah, but Joel Embiid, when he was healthy, was an incredibly good basketball player. So you cannot just retroactively. Well, he got hurt a lot. Now we have to. I think that's lazy analysis. He did feel like he was not welcome in New Orleans. He did not feel prioritized. He did not feel loved by the front office there. And he does want to find a place to feel at home in the NBA. I know that for a fact. There is a chance he signs that longer deal. I just, from a personal business negotiation standpoint, take the shorter deal, ball out, bet on yourself is the way I would approach it. But that's me putting my personal opinions of negotiation with the new CBA in mind.
A 2+1, you know, the +1 is almost like a surefire thing. Number one, it is a staple of Raptors negotiations to give a player option. I don't know why, but apparently we like to do it. Number two, for an injury-prone player who has had a really, really long history of injuries, yeah, player options are greatly beneficial to injury-prone players because that gives you two free agent years, basically. It's the year you have plus your free agent option. So that deal probably could be a little bit cheaper. I don't know if it's in the Raptors' interest to sign the shorter deal or the longer deal. I mean, typically players like Brandon Ingram, who've been playing basketball as long as Brandon Ingram, are probably going to enjoy their peaks somewhere between 25 and 30. And you would be signing him through all those years. And then you would have none of the 31, 32, 33 stuff. And then you just kind of bet on yourself. Like he's betting on himself. You bet on yourself that if he exceeds the value of that contract, you'll still be in a position where you have his bird rights and you will be able to still offer him the most number of years, the most number of money. And oh, by the way, you have 3 years to sell him on your culture and your organization and, you know, playing with Scottie and all that stuff. And you'll hope that at that point it'll be, he's already said Toronto is one of his 5 favorite cities in the league.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily gonna, you know, he's not one of those players. I know a lot of American, you know, athletes who maybe don't want to play across the border. He does not strike me as one of them. He strikes me as he pushed his way here. Like basically, that's like the writing is on the. He did, and I think a lot of people, you know, a lot of Raptor fans like were really. I made sure that video of him saying that and me saying it on the panel, me saying it everywhere got out very loudly that people understood that he chose to be here. This is basically like a free agent decision. Like when Zion talked about it, when Antonio Daniels talked about it, it was always presented as he left, not that he was traded, but rather that he basically left. And it was a mutual thing. They couldn't pay him. I don't think people realize how little they could have paid him in order to stay within the luxury tax. But I'm sure had he taken a significant haircut, they would have kept him. But he wasn't willing to do that. And I don't think he should have to do that. And so I understand that, and I just think he's never really played with a playmaking big like Yak, which is crazy to say because I don't even think Yak is that great as a playmaking big, but he's a significant upgrade over Jonas Valanciunas and, whoever the hell else he's played with. I don't know who's the starting center when y'all were in the Lakers. I don't remember that roster very well.
Zubats.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so Zubats got traded in 19 for Mike Muscala and a second-round pick. And since then,
Oof.
I have never liked Ivica Zubats. This is, separate to the fact that he was a Clipper. I mean, it's just the whole thing. I'm not going to bore you with my personal Ivica Zubats rant. But it's he was a very young player at the time, and although he's decent at the DHO thing now, he struggled to catch balls at times when he was a Laker.
I remember that.
It was one of those things where it was like, you have heart, but you got the rest of your body has to catch up fast.
Right.
Like he was decent rebounding big, but there was nothing else there. And Lakers fans were upset when he got traded, but it was also like, come on, what are the odds that this guy really becomes a really good NBA player? Now, obviously,
he has become a really good NBA player. Yeah.
Obviously. But
would you say it's despite your Clipper hate and Ivica Zubats hate, could you concede to the fact that he's a top 10 center in the NBA right now? 12?
Okay, so in fact, let's just spend 60 to 90 seconds on this. Okay, I think that if you're an NBA player and you do not serve an offensive talent outside of screening, offensive rebound, and rim finishing, you have to be an elite talent on the defensive end. And I think that although the rim protection numbers have been good, I know you're pulling up some D LeBron stat, or you're pulling up some D EPM stat or some D RAPM stat, and I know they're good, but I will yet again I want to implore you all, those are rebound driven, rebounds drive these stats so strongly. And I want to tell you that a player who has been torched in every single playoff series that he has been in is not a player that I will trust. He has never had I can't remember the time he had a good defensive playoff series. He's had a few games in the playoffs where he's had 22 and 15.
I didn't ask you if he was prime Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I said, is he a top 10 to 12 center?
Here's my point. Okay, here's the thing. I will make my point succinct here. If you can't be relied upon defensively and you can't create or optimize possessions for your team with spacing somehow, he's not even an elite vertical spacer. It's not like he goes up and grabs lobs and slams them down and opens up the paint for his teammates. I just think that his archetype is just a little too flawed. If he had one more tangible skill, I think he'd be an elite big in the league. But because he doesn't have that tangible skill.
You know how hard it is to be the second best defense in the NBA and have a defensive liability to the scale of what you're talking about? You know how much what the Clippers runs through him being so damn good? It's certainly not Norman Powell and James Harden being the greatest perimeter defenders of all time. He's cleaning up a lot, man.
He is cleaning up a lot. But there is a degree to which I will say that there is variance with the shots that he's deterring at the rim. If you
is he better than Rudy Gobert right now?
No.
As an overall player, offense plus defense, passing, everything.
I will 100%
you still go for Rudy Gobert.
I will 100% go for Rudy Gobert. And this is not
Nas Reed?
No, he's probably better than Nas, but I think Nas has had a weird season.
Jakob Poeltl?
Those are two guys who I think Jakob's the superior.
You're like tomato. Okay.
Those are pretty similar players to me. Now, again, Jakob had a season where he looked incredible defensively. He looked really good defensively a few years ago.
Define few years, man, because the last time I saw Jakob Poeltl as a great defender was I think I was a child.
Okay.
I think the dinosaurs were still running. No,
Many moons have passed.
It was like 5 years ago. Okay.
Sure. But I think Jakob is 29 now.
Yeah.
So he was 24 at that time. I think Ivica Zubac is in his 27-year season, age 27 season, I want to say.
Yeah, he's 27. He's born in
27, right?
97. Yeah.
I think that the odds that this is a flash in the pan season where he had a really good rim protecting season and that it regresses back to where it's been for most of his career next year is likely. Now, this is from a skeptic. It is possible that he just made a jump and his drop technique is just permanently repaired and the rim protection's there, and in the playoffs he's not going to get torched by every single person that he should
skeptic, but I heard hater. Like you're like
It
skeptic,
must be
but
an
I was
audio
just like,
thing. It
yeah,
must be an audio thing.
my bad. Your phone tripped out for a second. It was like,
That must have been
this
it,
is
yeah.
coming from the perspective of a generational Ivica Zubac hater. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Okay, I think it's pretty, for me at least, it's pretty unquestionable that he's a top 12 center. I think he's very fringy top 10, which is great value for them. I think they're doing a great job over the Clippers. You know, your ears are burning and saying like, great
they're
job
doing
and
a great
defensively.
job for an organization that, has no picks, has no tangible future, not a single prospect on the roster, no shot at winning a title right now, didn't get close to contending for a title in the last 10 years. No, it's a great job. I truly agree. Lawrence Frank, Steve Ballmer, build him a statue. Just get it done. Nico Harris in this competition. I think that's the thing. That's the thing that bugs me is that everyone wants to they always want to just say instinctively, oh, the Clippers, they're good. Yeah, no. Name a person on earth that thinks the Clippers have a chance at winning a title that's not a Clippers fan. No one thinks that they're even close to a title. They have no prospects for the future. They have no picks. They don't even have a guy who's on the roster where it's like, 3 years down the line, like at least the Lakers, we have Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic. Even before Luka, we had Austin Reeves where I was like, he's 26. And, maybe if he still develops a little bit, he could scam an all-star team in a few years. They don't even have a guy who's close to that. So that's my criticism of the Clippers is that people are instinctively like, well, they've been so downtrodden. We feel so bad for them. Maybe they're doing well this year. No, they're never doing well. They're never doing what they have a new stadium. That's the only cool thing. Now, as far as bigs that BI has played with, Ivica Zubac was probably the worst, but he also spent a lot of time with the Jonas Valanciunas that shot 26% from deep. The Jonas Valanciunas that took an obligatory 4 threes a game.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate the fact that he basically is doing a Euro tour of European bigs? It's quite an interesting thing. I've never noticed this before, but he went from Zubac, Croatia, then he traveled to Lithuania. Nice. Okay, Lithuania, great country, and now he's in Austria. It's perfect.
I think he was hoping for a slightly higher profile of Euro big. I think maybe if you were to give him like the Euro big lottery, I think he was hoping like maybe I'll hit a Domas, maybe I'll hit a Jokic, and then to hit that like mid tier, it's kind of like damn, I was doing the Euro tour.
Still plenty of time. I think the Sacramento Kings are trying to gear up on this player archetype. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan. Next up, man, Keegan Murray plus 18 first-round picks for Brandon Ingram. Come on down, Vivek Ranadive. Honestly, you want to talk about joke organizations? Sacramento Kings, worst, absolutely terrible.
And I will say this Fox deal isn't even the worst deal that they've made over the last like 4 or 5 years. Like the Fox deal by comparison is like, oh, well, I mean, at least you got something for a guy who said he wasn't going to resign and is out in 18 months. Like at least you got something. Sure, you got like a few fake first round picks and Zach LaVine.
It's one fake first round pick. Respect on the other two. They're real. Aren't they?
Sorry, just the Charlotte pick is fake. So you got 2 first round picks in 5 seconds. Like I'm going to be honest, like that's good return for a guy who's leaving in 18 months.
And I mean, honestly, Zach LaVine's played really well this year. It's just the problem is the archetype is unnecessary and redundant on the team. Granted, he's a better shooter than DeMar DeRozan, but why make this move for DeMar DeRozan? It's a compounding. Like to me, the Sacramento Kings right now strike me as like compulsive gamblers that are just trying to hit big on like, can we just out offense the entire NBA? And it's like, bro, you can't. And it took unbelievable luck for the Dallas Mavericks to choke that game. And it took Daniel Gafford injury, with Anthony Davis already being out and Derek Lively already being out for them to barely eke by in overtime. Like
Yeah.
that team sucks. Like the Sacramento Kings are completely hopeless as a basketball team right now. And it's not because of a lack of talent. It is actually and I want this to be a lesson to every person watching this podcast for the deep basketball insights that we are putting down right now. The following players are really good players. Malik Monk is a really good player. DeMar DeRozan is a really good player. Zach LaVine is a really good player. Domantas Sabonis is a really good player. I think Keegan Murray is a fantastic player. Play them all together at once, and you have an absolutely shit team. It doesn't work. You need different things. And honestly, I've been really hammering this thing home because I've been trying to learn more about American football after not really following American football for most of my life, even though I lived in America for so long. I just somehow managed to resist it. I don't know how I resisted it, but I resisted it. I was like, no, as a European kid, there's only one football in my life, and it is the one where you kick it. So
Dude, you were right the first time.
was I? No.
No,
I mean,
you were no, dude. Listen, I've watched football for my entire life. I loved football pretty much as I love basketball for a long time. And then I think something just like hit me one day and I was like, this just isn't fun anymore. Like I was like,
Mm.
what are we here for? Like why are we doing this? Why I couldn't understand
you
why
play
it
to
was
win, man. You play to win. Okay. My point is
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot more about football just because I like to learn new things. I am in my advanced age of 37 now. So yes, the mental decline is coming very soon. So you need to learn something new every day or you'll die. So my grandmother used to tell me this. You have to learn new things or you die. So I managed to learn new things every day. And this is how I keep myself young and sharp. And so I've been learning about football positions. And, it was like, okay, so the Dallas Mavericks basically decided, not the Dallas Mavericks, the Sacramento Kings basically decided, what's great? A quarterback. You know what's great? You know what's also great? Another quarterback. You know what's also great? Another quarterback. And it's just like, but what about your defense, bro? You can't play. It's not football. So it kind of works like that. Like if you want to play two creators, I totally get it. You got to surround them with a great deal of defense, right? You got to defend certain spots on the court. You got to have schemes that can hide your weakest defenders. What's cool about the Raptors right now is they are progressively getting better, right? Like their archetypes are sort of shifting and players are moving. But at some point, the schemes defensively are going to come in and actually going to carry and help some of these weaker defenders. Whereas right now, they refuse to out scheme. They refuse to scheme anything. They're refusing anything that would potentially hide Grady or RJ from their weakest spots. They're putting all these players in horrible positions to succeed. And I would not be surprised at all if Brandon Ingram's role when he comes into the Raptors is as a burn cutter. Like for 5 straight games. And people are going to fucking lose their minds and be like, you traded for this great isolation scorer only to ban him from isolation scoring. Fire this Darko Rajakovic moron and send him back to Serbia. But it's like, no, like we cast against type. We obviously, and one of the things I said about Brandon Ingram was, I think this is a marriage between player and system where the system needs the player just as much as the player needs the system. Like the Raptors don't have anybody who can create in the half court as consistently as Brandon Ingram. And Brandon Ingram has never played in a stable organization where passing was frequent, cutting was frequent, and shot quality was good overall. Like the Raptors' shot quality is incredible. Their shot percentages are awful.
And to that point, I think there are two coaches in the NBA that have been hardest hit by injuries. It's Taylor Jenkins in Memphis and Willie Green in New Orleans, right? Like over the last few years, they've been decimated by injuries. And I think they have two very different stories that come out of their like injury histories. Like Taylor Jenkins is in his job despite the injuries. Like it is amazing that he has like had this team together the way they are, and every healthy season they're incredible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Willie Green is in his job because his team has got hurt, and there's the hope that somehow they will be, maybe if they're healthy they'll be good. No, Willie Green is not very sound from on either end of the court. There is very little systematizing going on. There's very little structure in either the offense and particularly the defense. The rotations particularly are confounding, especially when you look at the defensive personnel he's putting out on the court, like minute by minute. So if you go from a situation like that to then you're sitting for 2 months on a Darko bench in a Darko locker room, and you're observing the system, and then you figure out your contract and you figure out how long you want to be there, and you commit to the system, you will see a very successful version of Brandon Ingram. And there will be nights where you think this guy is untouchable. Like there are moments where you look at him and you're like, wow, no one can mess with him. Like nobody can get a hand in his face. Nobody can block the jumper. Nobody can stop him from getting to his spots. And those are moments where even if you guys don't end up as like a super winning franchise in the next 3 seasons that he's there, it's stuff that you don't always get to experience as an NBA fan. And I encourage you guys to make Brandon Ingram feel welcome, because he's had a rough time of it. I will say, like, he did not get the stature, like the stature of player that he is, did not receive the love that he deserves in New Orleans. Like there's some stories about like the stuff that the FO would say to him and like the indirect messaging that they would give to him. Bad. Like there was a time, I think it was when Zion was out and they had a stretch near the end of the season, and they had to win to make the playoffs. And Brandon Ingram was all for like, let's push, let's try and make it in. And they held out like 3 of the next 4 best players, just as like a, hey, just so you know.
Mm-hmm.
If the Lakers traded THT for Kyle Lowry in 2021, do the Lakers repeat? Yeah, probably. I mean, I will say that I was long since a person who was like, well, 2021 was always going to be our year. Like we were really good that year, 21-5 before Solomon Hill. It's not even the LeBron injury; it's the Solomon Hill moment, and it will always be cursed Solomon Hill for that. But as soon as Solomon Hill jumped on that ankle, it has never really been the same. But once Braun went down, then the team record obviously fluctuated. And then we're up 2-1 in that series against the Suns, up 17. Anthony Davis goes down. You lose that game. It's 2-2. Anthony Davis doesn't come back for the rest of the series. You lose the game. Lose the series in 6. But most definitely, we would have been a much better team with Kyle Lowry. But I try not to do the thing where it's like, oh, well, we would have won, because I moved to San Francisco and I'm now realizing that that's all Warriors fans do. Like it is literally nonstop. It's literally all I hear every day. I go to play basketball 3 times a week at the park, and I'm catching rides with people on the way back, and I have to like drill a hole in the side of my head just so I don't say something that gets me kicked out of the car, because they're like, man, if Draymond hadn't punched Jordan Poole, we'd have been 3-time champions. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't realize that was your last dance. That was your like moment. You don't then get your moment and then get to have it again and again and again. But to answer the question quite simply, yes, if the Lakers traded for Kyle Lowry, we would have been odds-on favorites. Also, if we just hadn't traded for Russell Westbrook in one of the more boneheaded moves, it's no longer the most boneheaded move, but one of the more boneheaded moves that a franchise has made, we'd have still been a good team. The formula was there. If we hadn't let Caruso walk, if we hadn't let KCP walk, if we kept the crew together, it was just a lot of mismanagement. And I think that as cool as it is that Rob pulled this deal off, there are still a lot of question marks about the guy. I mean, I can count on my hand the number of good moves he's made. It is a small, small number. And he's been in the job 7 years now.
How's Christian Koloko been for you guys?
Koloko has been good defensively, and
have you seen any of the connective playmaking?
You see it in like a handful of possessions, but honestly, he's not on the court enough with the high leverage playmakers to see it thrive. Because realistically, when he gets on the court with guys like a Bronny or like a Gabe Vincent, teams aren't throwing exotic coverages at those defenses, and the solution isn't usually to give it to Koloko on the roll and see something out of it. I hope that we convert him to a full contract and we can see him in the postseason, because I really think that playing off of Luka, Koloko is one of those guys that will really thrive in those situations. But the shot blocking talent still is there. He his drop technique is really good. Drop technique is one of the things that I've been kind of trying to increase my knowledge on.
Mhm.
His drop technique is just good.
Well, I mean, it's worth noting that he was pretty decent for the Raptors as a rookie. But he had a really abysmal shooting percentage. He was shooting 51.7% true shooting. With the Lakers, it's up to 66%. He just doesn't do a lot, right? He's played 28 games for y'all. His boxes minus has gone from negative 3.5 to negative 2, which is actually pretty decent. His win shares are up. Literally everything is up except for the scoring. I mean, it's just opportunities at this point, right? Again, he's shooting 64%. He's shooting 67.5% from 2. Like I'm assuming that's a lot of dunks,
Yeah,
right?
so if we were to just look at specific micro skills that he it's that I've seen that he lacks is sometimes the screening he doesn't make the quite correct amount of contact into the roll. So like one of the things that Jackson Hayes does is he slips a lot of the screens, but he's good at like bumping off the hip of the screen defender, right? So he'll bump off the hip, get him a little throw. Technically, it's not legal, but you push the boundaries until the refs stop you.
Right.
He bumps off that hip, and then Jackson Hayes is a really really gifted physical specimen. So he just bolts down the lane, and his timing of his jumps is excellent. Koloko sometimes meanders into the lane, and he doesn't roll with the same like aggression or speed,
Yeah.
and that kind of takes the sting off of those rolls, and so it means that bigs can kind of like step up on the driver on the PNR,
Right.
and then it narrows the window for the lob. And
The
so he
Raptors did a
doesn't.
lot of work
Yeah.
with him on his finishes, like even when he was out because he had the blood clots issue and he couldn't play. But they did a lot of work with him, Darko, his camp. So I'm not surprised to see him shooting better. I think that was the one big weakness. His defensive analytics were insane with us. Like,
Yeah.
like
You can see the
really,
talent defensively. You can 100% see his talent. For a period of time when it was looking like Jackson Hayes was not going to be employed by the NBA a little bit, which I have not received resolution on, but that's neither here nor there. I was a big advocate of like, yo, just play Koloko. Let's see what we have. Give him real minutes, give him real opportunity. Let's see what we are working with here. Now, Jackson Hayes has been on an all-time heater for a player of his archetype, and he's going to likely continue to have a heater next to Luka and LeBron.
right.
But if he goes down for any period of time, Koloko will get opportunity. It's just one of the things that's concerned me is like you see a guy like Trey Jemison come in, and the aggression or the ferocity with which he goes towards the basket, it's like it's tangible. And Koloko just doesn't have that same verve. Maybe it's a personality thing. Maybe it's a fear thing where he's like not feeling fully like ready to like explode at the rim. Maybe it's just a personality thing. Maybe Christian Globe is not the kind of guy who wants to like rim attack like a monster. But
Mm,
it is one of those things that when you have gifted playmakers, your job is to have that motor to get to the rim 90 times a game and get it 10 times. Right? There's a saying in the other football, like the international football, where Gary Lineker is this big striker, and he said, "Your job as a striker, like the guy who scores goals, is to make 99 runs, and one of them you'll get found, and that one you better score a goal." That's really the job of rolling cut centers nowadays. It's like, yo, run to the rim, run the channels,
mhm.
get there every single play. And maybe we'll give it to you, maybe we won't. But your job is to be there. If you're not there, you're never gonna get it. And the thing I'd like to see from Koloko is get there often. And if you get there, you got it. Because you're defensively, you are a better defender than Jackson Hayes. You just are. I will stand by that. Even though Hayes is having an up season defensively, Koloko is the better defender. If he can just find it in his system to get to that rim, to be there for the lobs, to be at the dunker spot before the tag comes, we'll see an uptick in production. And with it, a new contract and money and minutes and all the things NBA players are looking for. But that's my
Absolutely.
Koloko update.
He's been, yeah, I mean, he was pretty useless offensively for the Raptors. A lot of the same issues that you brought up. I mean, his percentages are up, but that doesn't mean the volume of attempts is up. aggression, all that stuff you're talking about. I do feel like sometimes he doesn't feel physically sure of where his feet need to be, doesn't really play physical or aggressive enough. There is one player though that, on the Toronto Raptors who has effectively replaced him as the African project center of the future, and that is Ulrich Chomche.
Can we
Dude,
talk about Chomsky?
yeah,
Okay, so
dude, this guy is
pre-draft, I
Mhm.
had Chomsky 14th on my board. My board is
Wow.
still up on Twitter. Chomsky was 14th on my board. I will say, was it a swing? Absolutely, it was a swing. Is it still a swing? Yes, it is. But
Have you been watching him?
I have caught like 10 minutes of the entirety of his career so far. But I just haven't been able to watch too much.
I've watched every minute of this guy play basketball. Dude, I even had an interview with his trainer, Joe
I
Tuamuni.
watched that.
I mean, dude, everything you say about Christian, and I'm a big fan of Christian, and I'm still rooting for Christian, and
Yep.
I would love Christian back, to be honest. Like, if Christian wants to come back next year, we'll continue to develop you because I think there's some shooting potential there. I think there's some short roll potential there. I remain a fan of Christian Koloko as a 10-minute, 12-minute, 15-minute big off the bench if Darko can have one more year to work with him. But what I have seen with Ulrich is so incredible because he has this anger that he plays with. It is like a true ferocity, and it's not fake.
Beautiful.
Like it is beautiful, absolutely, because you want players to be aggressive, and the way that he is attacking the basketball, and I do say attacking, like literally, he's attacking the basketball defensively. He may not be like talking shit, or he may not be like mean mugging or anything like that, but he is so deathly serious out there. Like when he starts going after the basketball and the way he dunks and the way he like screens, there's like an actual toughness to how he plays. And then you have to pinch yourself and remind yourself this guy's the youngest player in the NBA right now. That's insane. The fact that he physically feels like stronger than most of the players that he's going up against is insane. As it pertains to his upside, like there's a little bit of shooting potential because his shot's a little bit flat. It's a little bit like a throw.
Yeah,
But at 7 feet tall, who the hell's going to stop it anyway? He's so athletic. He's really athletic. His timing of his jumps, like how quickly he's able to get to it. Like I've done film breakdowns with him where he is like down, like loading up on his jump, and the other player is like has jumped a second before. And you're like, okay, physically, it's not possible for him to block this, but somehow he still blocks it. Like his shot blocking technique is insane. His timing, his hand-eye coordination, but just overall, it's his toughness. What I did not have him 14th on my board at all. I was barely impressed when we got on at 57 because I was so unimpressed with how raw he was in the 3 games that I had watched of him over an NBA Africa Academy. Like I thought, man, foul prone, turnover prone, totally like sloppy with the footwork. The player I saw in Summer League was like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. The player I've seen this year in the G League, I talked to a person who's really, really close, like who's covering, every game down there in person. And he's like every week, different player.
and that's the thing that I was seeing was I was watching his games progressively, and it was kind of the thing that I was noticing was it's a degree of motor that you don't usually find in players this athletically talented, and
Sure.
that's what I will always be willing to bet on. And the reason I put him 14th, or I don't remember exactly, it might have been 13 to 16 was the range I had him in. The reason people get in that range for me is that I feel 100% certain that you will have a career in the NBA. And I will say that even if it doesn't pan out, I will say that I believe he would have a career in the NBA. And the reason is physically, it's unreal. His wingspan is enormous. I think it was, God, I don't remember. It was 7'4", 7'5", 7'6", something unreal, right?
7'4.5", yeah.
Massive arms. And he's fast. So you look at a guy like Tijan Salam, who he was a better prospect. I looked at Chomche and Salone, and I said, Chomche is as good of a prospect as Salone. Salone has not played in a level that is like extremely high, extreme levels higher, and performed to a level far above Chomche. And Chomche's younger. Chomche's more physically gifted. Chomche has a better motor. Now, am I
Mhm.
going to believe the 40% from 1.5 attempts a game from Tijan Salone? Oh my God. Like, I get it. You take a swing at number 6. I'm not saying you should have picked Chomche at 6. Absolutely not. Get him in the second.
I've
Get him
actually
late.
said that. I'm not kidding. After I watched him in the summer league. So by the way, I'm just going through your Twitter. Here's a funny tweet. I don't know if you remember this. Raptors picked Jamal Shed at 45, C plus. Quite surprised it wasn't Shamshi. Little did you know, Papa Masai was cooking up a storm to get them both. And by the way, Jamal Shed has been balling out.
Oh, I
He's
love
been
Jamal Shed.
amazing. Yeah. So hold on. The entire freak out of the draft. Wait, Shamshi hasn't been picked yet?
Yeah, I was because my thing is with the Lakers, oh my God, could you imagine if we had a guy who just had the motor? I've long since believed that talent
Okay, I'm
is
just gonna pull it
a
up.
relative term when it comes to NBA players. All
Yeah.
of them have the ability when you get inside 2 feet of the paint to put the ball into the hoop. It is every single one of them is able to do it. Every single one of them is able to block a shot. Every single one of them is to string together a few dribble moves. The thing that separates guys who are of relative similar talent, of which Chomsky is not extremely talented. He's not like a technically refined. I have my grade book up on him right here. There is pretty much nothing in the mental category that I thought was of note. His entire physical category is just it's starred out. So just for note, the way I do my like draft assessments is I split players up into 3 categories: physical, mental, and technical. And within it, like the physical category, I just have fully maxed out length, extremely excellent. His strength is excellent. His foot speed, excellent. Fluidity, excellent. Explosiveness, excellent. Speed, excellent. It just, he's a physical monster that is so young that it's like, why would I not bet on him? And also, he had shooting flashes. If you look back
Oh,
in
yeah.
those Do the Gaffer Gay games, there were moments, and those were the moments that sold me. I was like, hey, if you just build 2 or 3 tangible skills,
Sure.
you've got it. And I remain a person who believes. I hope dearly that he gets an opportunity in the next couple years as he develops. I love Ulrich Chomche. I listen to a few. One of the things that I try and do in every single one of like the player evals I do is I try and go listen to like an hour of them talking.
Me too. Yeah.
Great guy. Like someone that you are dearly hoping for the very best, always.
Mm.
And I think that he's going to be a good NBA player. I can't see a scenario where you look at him like he's not at the minimum a good defender and a guy who can finish stuff at the rim. And at 6'11", there's not much more to ask for. If he has even a micro development as a passer, which he kind of has flashes of, he processes the game really well defensively. He has a few moments where he picks a pass. He's a little like he doesn't always throw the right passes, but his decision making is like 18, 19 years old.
Look at this. So this is 6 blocks by Ulrich in one game. Okay. 1. He gets hit in the face and he still blocks it. This is so
That's
funny to
dog
me.
you can't teach, man.
Do you know how many players wouldn't have like gone for that? Like he is like I feel like Ulrich could get like stabbed and still he would be like, still block it. This is just a dude like who unbelievable. Okay. Just look at this. Look at how he moves his feet.
That's it. And that right there were
Boom.
and that's the key is that his ability to play at the hedge and protect the rim. Very few 19-year-olds, very few guys who were 18 at the time of the draft are able to do that. It's just those are things that you're looking for. You want in
Did
a
you see that?
prospect.
Dude,
Something special. Go for it.
watch this block.
That's good
It's so
timing,
vi-
verticality.
It's so violent. He's so
and it's
violent.
and it's
It's like he tried to
technically
grab it
excellent.
out of his hands and just get it out of here. And he so rarely ever knocks it out of bounds, which is something I just really love about certain shot blockers.
Yeah.
But it's like, bro, these are not season highlights. This is one game in which he played 24 minutes. Like,
And that right there, those moments, like the help side recovery blocks, those are the ones that will give him like really good defensive upside. So if he can just continue to work on the footwork, continue to like, I will say like
he's on the ground here. This
Yeah.
guy's already in his jump. How the hell does he block this?
look
Like,
at
do
if
you
you
see
see just
that?
like a single frame of how long his arm is, it's unreal. He is a really, really gifted physical player. And I love Ulrich Chomche. I want so dearly for him to do well, not just because I had him high on my draft board. I really couldn't care less about like the way the draft board pans out. Like I didn't have Don Connect high on my draft board. I have an affinity for Don Connect because he plays for my team. I just like the guy. I just like the guy that Ulrich Chomche is. I like
Yeah.
that he plays with his heart on his sleeve. And like Dorian Finney-Smith had an interview where he's like, I don't like guys that like laugh on the court. Like I like guys who show up and like play with aggression. Ulrich laughs and he plays with aggression. Like that, it's the kind of guy that you want to see do well. And I really hope that he can improve the rebounding. He can improve the.
Do you like Bronny?
I'll say one thing. I think that this whole like, oh, Bronny, it's nepotism. I won't deny that there is a degree of nepotism, but I will say every single time that someone brings it up,
a degree of nepotism. Is this like
I would say
I'm a
there's
critic? Okay, a
perfectly
degree
fine.
of a degree of nepotism, and
Sorry,
I'm
let me clarify.
I'm
A
a
degree
Ivica Zubac.
technically means any degree from 0 to 360. So technically speaking, yes, it is a degree of nepotism. Sorry to be very technical, but I think that anytime someone almost dies, and the time that it takes them to come back, I think that if you compare the way he looked athletically before he had the cardiac arrest, and then the way he looked after, you will see a.
Oh, we lost him. Oh no. I don't know how we lost him. It's almost like LeBron sent the black SUVs and just said, "Don't talk about him." Okay, well, let me know if you're able to come back. Summerlow saying he got CIA'd. I agree with this. Ulrich paired with Scottie will be formidable on defense. I think Ulrich plus Scottie plus Brandon Ingram is like, we can just call it arms. We can call that entire front court arms. Anyways, I want to give Sahil a huge shout out for coming on. I thought it was a good time to just have a discussion. Honestly, y'all were just privy to a conversation that we probably would have had off the air anyway, which is pretty cool. Hey, what is going on? What's up? What happened?
I think I just got a phone call.
Did
I think it
LeBron
was
send the
Adam
black
Silver.
SUVs?
No, I think it was just. I think it was from up high. I was thinking it was Adam Silver. I think he made a call. He said, "We're not going to be talking about this.
We're not going to talk about.
We're not talking about Bronny."
I do appreciate that Adam Silver is checking out my live at 3 o'clock. I want to say something. Actually, this is a big I want to say channel announcement, but. Okay, this isn't 100% confirmed, so I'm going to have a lot of egg on my face if this doesn't work out, but it's like 98% confirmed, and I feel like I want to share this with this community. I believe that I am locked in to interview Charles Oakley this week. And I wanted to tell Oak Tree because he's like the biggest Charles Oakley fan that I know, and he's a huge channel member. So yeah, and it's for this channel. And I actually put in this, like I tried to get Charles Oakley to Summer Low saying, heard you said it on the panel. Yeah, so it should be that, and it should be another person as well. There's another person as well. So it's a twofer. And hopefully
Ooh.
this could lead to something bigger down the line for me. But yeah, finally breaking through after, and it's like I did it my way, man. I did it totally my way. I have not been PC about anything. I have not held back from, calling people bitches and shit. Like I've just done it as myself. And so if Charles Oakley is ever gonna vibe with one person in the Toronto media, it is going to be me. I know that for sure. So yeah, so I can't wait to chop it up with him. I hope it doesn't fall through because there's a little bit of stuff we need to go through first tomorrow, but it sounds like it's all good. So I'm really hoping.
Kudos, man. That's awesome. I will be tuned in.
I hope so. Yeah. I don't know. There's a cynical Eastern European part of me that nothing good can ever happen to me. So now I'm just like, okay, it's just all gonna fall apart. But it seems to be an all good, and I don't
This is
understand
exclusive to Eastern Europeans, though. We the rest of us can't have a claim on nothing good's gonna happen to me.
No, I feel like a lot of people have this neurotic tendency to feel like something good is not going to happen. But I feel like, I don't know. I've been sort of conditioned to believe since I was a child that every time something good happens, something bad happens. And, I don't know if it's just poor parenting or what it was, but yeah, that's just,
Jesus.
yeah, I don't know what it was. But anyways, yeah. So in conclusion, Luka Doncic is a Laker, and Ulrich Chomche is a Raptor, and Brandon Ingram is a Raptor. And yeah, I mean, look, I think the Lakers have always, since Magic, actually since like we can go back to Mikan,
I was gonna
have
say
been defined by the star, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the star in LA. It's just an archetype, and it's so funny how archetypes just keep repeating themselves throughout NBA history. Have you noticed that? The Raptors started out with a wing, right? It was like Vince Carter, that was the wing, and then they transitioned to DeMar DeRozan, who was a wing, and then they transitioned to Kawhi Leonard, who's a wing, and then Scottie Barnes, who's a wing, and it's just like, okay, this is a franchise that is just defined by people with long arms who play the small forward position. Okay, and then there are certain teams that are defined by like guards. There's
100%.
archetypes that just keep repeating themselves out. So yeah.
And then there's like teams that are like defined by failure, and it's like the Clippers, and then it's like more fail. I'm just kidding. I was just making a joke.
I mean, you're not wrong. The Clippers are defined by failure,
but I don't feel the need to constantly do that. What I was gonna say was it is a bit of a chicken and the
after
egg
you
situation.
just did that.
I was gonna say it's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation where you don't know, is it that there's a culture within the club to do this, or is it that people come in, look at the history and want to develop a culture based on it, or is there like an underwritten thing within the cities? I think it's one of those, you'll never really be able to pinpoint it. It's probably a confluence of all of those factors, but it is one of the cooler things when you look at history, when you see it repeating in certain aspects. There's a big aspect of that with soccer and the big five leagues. You look at like the cultural political landscape of those countries, and like the play styles in those countries really reflect the cultures of those countries, and it's really interesting. I don't know whether it's necessarily exact, but it's interesting.
Phoenix Play Zed saying, Rob, can you please touch base on BI being exactly what Raptor fans imagined OG would be on offense? I'm not sure I see that at all. I never imagined OG being Brandon Ingram.
If what he means is like, if you guys just like really wanted OG to be good at like all the tangible skills on offense, then yeah, like BI is better at every tangible skill on offense, other than like OG shot like 1 or 2% higher on a catch and shoot a couple seasons. Like BI is.
Brandon Ingram's had some pretty decent catch and shoot seasons.
No,
like it's funny, like when you look at the synergy data on him and you really like start to say, okay, well, he's not a frequent cutter, but he's very effective when he does. He is not great at, playing off the ball, but he's fantastic when he does. The catch and shoot percentages were pretty good. When he played that 1 year in New Orleans with Lonzo, where he was an all-star, and he had he had that 1 year where he was most improved. He was shooting, I think, 39% on 6.2 attempts from three. So I have a feeling like he's like he's going to be optimized. Like Lonzo in and of itself is a system.
Yeah. Get
Lonzo,
healthy, Zo. We're bringing you home.
yeah.
We're bringing you
Like,
home.
I mean, I don't know if he's going to the Lakers, man, but like, I mean, I'm sure he would welcome it. He's a fantastic player. Like Lonzo is like, in my opinion, one of the best passers in the NBA, bar none. Like he's top 10 passer. So when you play with a guy like that, like really it is like playing with Luka or LeBron or something like that. Maybe not to that level because his scoring was never to that level, but
yeah,
you know, his passing, if I isolate just Lonzo Ball's ability to make a pass, how quickly he sees it, how quickly he reads it, I feel like it's right up there with all the other ones. You
I wish
know,
I had a bell. I could just keep hitting it every time you say a word. Like I could not agree more on every single one of those things. You can't technically like separate scoring and playmaking. I mean, and passing because they're so like intrinsically linked when it comes to how you
sure. Yeah.
how a defense addresses you. But if you were to just look at like how quickly someone's able to spot the hole and hit the hole, he's so close to the top. He and Ben Simmons are two of those guys where I'm just like, oh, why didn't you work out? Like, oh, why did your body fail you this way?
Yeah. No, I agree. Final thing I'll ask you is buyout candidates for the Lakers. Are there any that you see, expect, and are you kind of bummed that the Lakers missed out on Ben Simmons
I'm
and that he
extremely
went to
bummed.
the LA Clippers?
Yeah, I'm extremely bummed that Lakers missed out on Ben Simmons. Really, just because I have always really liked Ben Simmons, and also
You like
like
Ben
I get
Simmons?
it.
You like Zion Williamson?
No, but see, here's the thing: I have
You like
never
rock
understood.
stars?
I don't understand why we as a community look at these people like they are choosing to be injured. Ben Simmons specifically, Zion, you can say like, oh, he's making lifestyle choices that will increase the likelihood of injury. Ben Simmons never did a thing to ask for that back injury. That back injury hit him like a truck, and then he never recovered from it. He came back
Fair.
early from the injury. He did what he
Sure.
had to get healthy for the playoffs. He did everything in his power. And yes, one day he passed up a layup because Trae Young contested him. I get it. And LeBron James got locked up by JJ Barea. It happens. People have bad plays. People make mistakes. I don't know how he went from, oh my God, Trae Young made him not take a layup, and then chronic back pain issue, and he could not move. And then he recovers from it, and then he's trying to play basketball, and then it hits him again. And now he's like, well, he's a joke. I profoundly hate that. And I think that, yes, they are playing for entertainment, but it's their body too. Like, he does not have a choice. He did not volunteer for the injury. He did not ask for it. He did not increase his likelihood by being lazy. Same thing with guys like Kawhi. Similarly with Embiid, like I think Embiid has tons of flaws. I'm not a big Embiid fan, but the fact that we as a community look at him and go, "Ha ha, you got hurt, bruv." I promise you that all of these players want to play. They love playing basketball. I am bummed that we missed out on Ben Simmons. I don't know how many viable buyout candidates there are.
Hmm.
I am really more kind of I was looking at a guy like Torrey Craig, who I thought was maybe going to clear waivers. I think he went to Boston, which is like, okay, why? You're just going to get like 8 minutes for the entirety of the season now. Congrats. I honestly don't know. I looked at the buyout landscape and I'm like, it's just a lot of players that you would have to cut guys from the team right now to find. Before, when we made the Mark Williams deal, we were sending Reddish and Connect, and so we are opening up a slot.
Yeah.
Honestly, right now, I'm at a point where I'm like, dude, cut Reddish, sign Goodwin. Goodwin has given me moments of elation in his 35 minutes of playing for the Lakers. He's gotten like 6 offensive rebounds for a guy who stands at like 6'4".
He had
I'm
3
just like,
tonight,
bro, I'm in. I
and he had
am
17 points.
I am in on Jordan Goodwin. So if he ends up being the guy, that works for me. I think that as much as it is important to get rim protection, if you want to play a swarming style of defense, you need screen navigation, you need active hands, you need guys who create turnovers. And unlike Cam Reddish, Jordan Goodwin has a tangible offensive skill in the NBA.
Would you waive Shake Milton?
I would pack his bags for him. I'd leave San Francisco. I'd exit my apartment. I would drive down nonstop, no sleep. I'd forego any assignment I have tomorrow. I would help him. I'd drive.
Oh no. Adam Silver called the black SUVs again. They were like, there will be no Shake Milton slander on this podcast. What are you talking about? Shake Milton is my son. Okay. So I mean, are we in such a weird conspiratorial place right now as a society that literally every single time someone gets knocked off a stream, I immediately assume that Adam Silver has sent a hit squad for you because he cannot stand you talking about Shake Milton?
To wrap it up, I don't think Shake Milton's been good. Shake Milton has actually been awful as a Laker. He does not defend. He has missed the play call dozens of times. It is mind-boggling. Him and Dorian Finney-Smith got here the exact same day. Dorian Finney-Smith has not missed a beat, has not missed a play call. He knows where he needs to be on every single possession. There is no excuse. There's an excuse for not being healthy. There's an excuse for, hey, my body's not in shape. Hey, this, hey, that, hey, this, hey, that. You know what's never an excuse? Hey, I didn't open the playbook and I don't know where I'm supposed to be. There's never an excuse. And the fact that Shane Milton is that guy like 4 times a night and he only plays like 10 minutes. Okay, he plays 10 minutes in a blowouts. He's been so bad. And he airballed today, and I was like, all right, wrap it up. Thank you for being a part of the trade.
He needed to blow on his hands a little bit there. That was very important to him. I mean, honestly, I don't know what y'all do. I think like this Mark Williams thing has sort of screwed you guys a little bit. Not because I'm upset at all that the trade was rescinded. I think Mark Williams is a hella average, very mid type of center. And, you know, I think the assets that you gave up insinuate that he's much more than that, or that imply that he's much more than that, because that's pretty much the package that the Raptors gave up for Jakob Poeltl. Roughly. I mean, that's actually more than the Raptors gave up for Jakob Poeltl. The Raptors gave up a future first, lottery protected, top 6 protected. Oops. And conveyed it last year. That sucked.
I will say, actually, like, Mark Williams has potential in the same way that anyone who's played fewer than 100 NBA games, like, you don't know for sure what they'll be for the rest of their career.
Okay, but like there's type of potential you bet on, like Zion Williamson, you know, potentially,
yeah.
or Blake Griffin coming off, you know, or Chet Holmgren coming off a lot of injuries, and then there's Mark fucking Williams.
Yeah, I accept that. I think what I was going to say was that I could see a world where if you were to fix some of his issues in drop and like bring him higher up and work on his footwork, find a way for him to time up the blocks. Offensively, he's a quite a polished finisher around the rim. He has tangible offensive skills. You could see him, and I use the term scam very specifically here. You could see him scam an All-Star appearance at some point playing next to Luka Doncic. 100% you could. But I don't need to send a pick for a guy that can scam an All-Star appearance next to Luka Doncic. Those guys are a dime a dozen. Pretty much any big in the NBA is going to look phenomenal next to Luka Doncic. That is the story of his career. Dwight Powell looked like a world beater for 50 games because he played next to Luka Doncic. Respect Dwight Powell, like that, not like crapping on him, but come on now. Like Dwight Powell got paid.
Daniel
12
Gafford
million a
looked
year.
awesome. You know, last year Derek Lively has looked awesome. You know, I think Derek Lively is more just awesome in general as a player, but he's just awesome. But like there are definitely bigs that Luka has just, you know, and again, it's so simple. Like when you really, really think about it, basketball gets really, really simple. It's 3-on-2. You know, it's 3-on-2. Like how are you fucking up 3-on-2 or 2-on-1, right? And when one of those players is Luka Doncic and the other player is a big who can catch a basketball, like it's over, right? Like it's just not. And this is where, you know, those big playmakers have those bigger angles and wider angles to make and especially when they're good scorers as well. So there goes the point that we were talking about, scoring and passing being linked.
Yeah.
So I just think, you know, at this point, the Lakers just need to figure out health, depth, rotations, and hope for a surprise pop. I really, you know, in hindsight, I don't know if Rui Hachimura was available and at the time Deni Avdija was not. But I keep thinking every time I watch Deni Avdija ball out for the Portland Trailblazers, how much better Deni Avdija would be with the Lakers. like to the point where I really, at this deadline, if Portland would have done it, I would have traded Rui plus a first round pick for Deni Avdija in a heartbeat. Like first plus maybe I would even add Dalton Connect. Like Deni is the perfect player in that system. And yeah, I don't really understand why that didn't happen. I was a huge Deni Avdija fan with Washington.
If we're searching things up on my Twitter, go look up Deni on my Twitter. I was begging for Deni Avdija. I think that Deni Avdija was very clearly Washington's best swing, like their best prospect, their best whatever. Like Washington sucked, still sucks. It was so clear that Deni Avdija was the prize jewel there. And when that notification hit that it was Rui Hachimura, I was like, oh man.
What did they
Rui's
trade?
not
What
good.
did Portland trade for Deni Avdija? Like a first?
Yes, it was a first, and I want to say Malcolm Brogdon. Yeah, it was
Well,
Brogdon
that
and
deal doesn't make any sense. Deni Avdija trade. It was okay. So it's Malcolm Brogdon and the number 14 pick in a super weak draft. Okay, so the Wizards get Malcolm
it was
Brogdon. So
Bub
they eat
Carrington
salary.
and it was Bub Carrington and
Oh, okay.
Malcolm Brogdon.
So the Wizards get Bub Carrington plus 2029 first round pick.
Yeah.
Second most favorable from Portland. A 2028 second round pick and a 2030 second round pick. Okay. So now
they
that
sent a
deal
lot
makes,
for him.
I mean,
Come on, 4
sure.
picks for a guy whose career high was 24 points a game, like 24 points in a single basketball game. Like they
I'm
did
pretty sure
send.
like the Wizards were, pretty sure the Blazers were trying to get off of Malcolm Brogdon's money.
No.
That's a negative value deal.
For sure.
So you can at least take 2 of the second round picks just off for like taking Malcolm Brogdon's money. So what you
Fair
really
enough.
traded
Yeah,
was
I
a
guess.
2029 heavily protected first round pick and a quote unquote lottery pick, which is assigned to Bub Carrington, who, by the way, I like, but yikes. I don't know. The Blazers are sneaky good.
Bob's the youngest American in the last draft. Give him another season. But also with young creators, it
Do you know
takes
what?
time.
Do you know what? I can't believe we went an entire episode talked about all the shit organizations. You brought up the Clippers, and we never talked about the Wizards once.
Bro,
But I do think the Wizards have turned a corner to some
I do
extent
too, actually. Yeah.
with like their overall theory of what they're doing with basketball. I still don't know how I feel about Alex Sarr. I still don't like there are nights when I watch Matas Buzelis play basketball, and I'm just like, I probably would have considered Matas Buzelis there. Some nights I watch Jacoby Walter and I'm like, maybe I would I definitely would have picked Jacoby Walter over Bob Carrington right now looking at it back, but whatever. We'll see.
I think the thing with Alex Sarr is I'm just confused about why he went about his process the way he did. So you said you wanted to play the 4, which is why you didn't want to go to Atlanta because they have Jalen Johnson. You wouldn't have gotten to play the 4. You would have had to play the 5. Then you went to Washington and you've played like a handful of games next to Jonas, and you pretty much exclusively played as a 5. And instead of as a 5 who's getting spoon fed like looks by Trae Young, you're getting awful shots. You're getting no development. I think he made a mistake here. I still think defensively, like there's a
I think his
floor
camp
with
made
it.
a mistake. I
I
think his
do too.
camp made a mistake. And also there's a little bit of a thing floating around in the NBA that the Atlanta Hawks are a really bad organization and that you just don't want to work with them. And I agree with most of what you said, but there was this thing you were talking about with Ben Simmons, and you said, I don't want to push back because you were very passionate about it, where you said
Sure.
like all these players they want to play and nobody wants to get hurt, etc. I can tell you that one of my biggest welcome to adulthood moments, again as a 15 or 16-year-old, I really did believe this. Like I believe players really, really wanted to play. And then I befriended an NBA player in my early teens who played for the Toronto Raptors, and he kind of gave me the straight dope of like, no, like I'm shocked at how many people in on my team, the Raptors at the time. I think this was 2006, 2007 ish. So He's just like, I'm so surprised how many people just have a passive interest in basketball. Like they don't want to watch basketball, they don't want to talk about basketball, they're hardly present, they're like, barely even awake at these team meetings. It's like they really don't seem to give a shit. When the coach is talking, they're kind of like one in, one out. So again, maybe that's partially because the Raptors weren't a very good team, but they weren't a terrible team in
You're
2007.
right,
They were
actually. Yeah, no,
okay.
you're 100% right. I shouldn't have said that they all want to play. I think specifically with Ben Simmons, yes, there are moments where it may have looked like, oh, he's giving up. Oh, he's not this. But I think people, like, unless you've gone through like intensive rehab, and I've
Mm,
spent a lot of time working with people when they are in rehab,
right.
bro, rehab's not fun. Rehab's not a good time. Like no one is like, hey, I want to get better. Let me go do rehab. No, it sucks. It is an awful place to be. It is one of the lowest points in your life where you realize that, hey, my body is broken to an extent and I have to now go and fix it. And to do that to the purpose of then hoping to get to play basketball again, which is what
Mhm.
Ben Simmons did. I think specifically the Ben Simmons thing, I think he said no to playing one time or like one or two times, and people have never really let it go. And I get it. I understand.
It's just a
I think
coverage, man. It's like when a narrative gets out about you, and that's why I've been so fiercely like protective of Scottie's image, but also Brandon Ingram's image. Like there was these guys. I don't know if you saw this, but like there was these guys in Toronto that started trying to call him Slim Reefer, and I just wanted to push back on that so hard because I was just like, dude, like I talked to people who've been very very close to Brandon Ingram's camp, and like I don't get that sense about him that he's like some stoner pothead who just does. Like all I've ever heard is this guy's in the gym. He lives in the gym. He
yep.
literally every person who's ever talked about him on record or off record has said the exact same thing. And something that I learned a long time ago when I was doing all my research for Darko, when I was doing all my research for Scottie, is when the same story keeps coming back in different versions, at different timelines, different scenarios. Oh, like with Brandon Ingram, he's always dapping up everybody. He always
Yep.
respectful. He always says hello, sir, yes, sir, no, sir. He's like I heard stories from the Duke media, like, oh yeah, like he was so respectful to us. He always made sure afterwards to make sure that we got all the quotes that we needed. With players, that he's played with, they all speak of like, oh my God, that was the best year. I loved playing with that guy. So it's like you keep getting this story. You get it in AAU, you get it in high school, you get it in college, and it's the same thing with Scottie. Like you get that
Yeah.
same story with him everywhere he went. It was like, oh, he fused our practices with all this energy. So it's like the same thing with certain players. You just get that like repetitive story. And yeah, I guess my point was overall that nothing that I've ever heard about Brandon Ingram screams stoner.
No, I think there's a whole conversation to be had about why people got that message from his physical appearance.
Droopy eyes. That's a. It's just like that's it.
More specifically, droopy eyes on a black guy is why people call him a stoner. But we don't need to have a whole conversation about that. But I think that people will learn, especially people in Toronto will learn, like he loves basketball. He really does. He loves his teammates. I've never heard a single bad thing that one of his teammates has ever said about him. I've only heard that when he heard that Zion was not going to play, that he was upset. That's it. I remember that when there was a playing game and he was talking to Zion, he was like, bro, like, come on, come back. We can try and win and we'll make the playoffs and then we have a shot, right? And Zion was like, I'm not physically ready. And he was a little upset at that. Oh my
Sure.
God forbid a guy be a little upset that his co-star isn't going to come and play a game of basketball that they absolutely must win. That's a guy who
Sure.
cares. And I think that Toronto, for the price, it was absolutely a good deal. You will greatly enjoy watching Brandon Ingram play basketball. And if he and Scottie can find any synergy in a two-man game, you guys are going to be decent. Like, it'll
Yeah.
be a good duo.
Absolutely, man. Where can people find you? Where can people follow you? Do you want people to follow you?
Yes,
Let them
I
know.
would love it if people follow me. I am Patel Sahil 2002 on Twitter. That's just my last name, first name 2002. Um, yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter. Our podcast has a bit lapsed since I came here to law school, but we're hoping to pick it up in the next few weeks. Um, But yeah, I tweet often and often during my classes because what's more important, you know? Basketball or some guy's rights? I know what I'm picking.
Some
No,
guys'
I'm joking.
rights.
No, of course, I'm joking. But I love basketball. I'm happy to talk anytime. Hit my DMs, people. I
Yeah,
love talking about
great,
basketball.
great conversation. Always appreciate you coming through. I think the last time we had a really, really good conversation, and so
Yeah.
I hope people put down or pick up what you're putting down. I think there was a lot of facts spit here, so definitely thank you so much for coming on, man. I wanted
Appreciate you, man.
to, yeah, I hit up my friend John D on the panel, and I was like, "Yo, Luka's first game, you want to come on?" Like, I want to have like kind of like a panel situation. I hit up a couple of LA content creators. People wanted to do their own show, or people were like, um, they were out of town or something like that or whatever. So I was like, you know what, I gotta get somebody on here who's actually there, who has like kind of. I wanted to capture the essence of that moment. You know what I
I
mean?
promise you, the essence of the moment that the Lakers traded for Luka Doncic was of shock, disbelief, and then elation. I mean this truthfully, people. I had the best night of my life after I got that news, and I rode that high all the way till I got home. It was
Sure.
incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, happy for you guys. We're rooting for I'm not gonna lie, I'm not rooting for the Lakers to win in the playoffs. I'm rooting for Shea. But
Heard.
and beyond that, I'm rooting for Jokic. But apart from that, if those two ever get knocked out, if Jokic and Shea ever get knocked out, I will be rooting for Luka and the Lakers.
I have a bracket in mind. I have a very specific bracket in mind that I will be willing the NBA. Like every night, I'm going to be
What's the pass? Tell
doing.
me.
So the prayer is that Dallas has played OKC excellently, and that with a healthy Anthony Davis and with a healthy Gafford or Lively, they force OKC into the double big lineup, which prevents them from creating the turnovers, and then they're forced into a more of a half court game, and Shea gets his 34 a night, but they do not have a secondary creator, particularly when they're running the double big lineup, because the synergy is just not there. That is going to be their weakness, is if a team can force them to run the double big lineup for OKC. I think that they can be got at. And I think the team that can force them to do it the best is still Dallas, even though now they're going to be doing it in a different way. So if they can do that, appreciate you. And then, I mean, it's still Minnesota for Denver. And I think that if we play I mean, I still think this year, 100%, we have Denver, because I know for a fact that Jackson Hayes is going to get brutalized, but the one thing I can finally say this year is Mr. Jokic, the guy who has terrorized my team. Oh my God. Finally, come up and guard this pick and roll. Finally, we're going to have something to force you to do on the other end. Finally, I'm going to be able to pull you out of the paint. I'm going to be able to prevent you from creating outlet scenarios. I think there are some marginal gains to be had with the Luka Jokic matchup. And if it all breaks my way, 2025 NBA champions. Will it? Absolutely not. But hey,
I'm glad you said it, because I was gonna say it anyways, but I'm glad you said it first. Yeah, I have a feeling Jokic is going to still have a feast, and I do believe that as your defense requires you to play guys like Vando, that he's gonna have time to rest. But I'll be very curious if what I saw tonight is any indication, then yes, Jokic will have to work in ways he hasn't had to work before, but also you have less resistance at the rim without Anthony Davis. So, I mean, it's an interesting hypothesis. I think skill wins out. You got more skilled, and
yep.
I got to tell you, I hold my breath every time Anthony Davis plays basketball.
Can I
Literally.
tell you something really funny? I was talking to my brother today, and I told him for the first time, like, I'm finally holding my breath with every moment. Like every time, like our three players are on the court, I'm just like, dude, I just need them to not get hurt. Like I don't know what I'd do if they got hurt. And Funnily enough, I watched Anthony Davis for 5.5 years on my team. I never worried that he was going to get hurt. I don't know what it was, but there was just something about him where I was like, I wrote at the beginning of the season, like, I know he will miss 20 games, but he's only missed more than 20 games once, and in his time as a Laker. And so then I was just like,
Do you remember his nickname?
bro, see, here's the thing with the Anthony Davis thing. I hate that nickname primarily because every player in the league, I look at all the injury reports. Everyone's day-to-day all the time, and nobody
Right.
gets the nickname except the guy who's really not been that unhealthy for quite
The
some
last 3
time.
years. The last 3 years.
And then before that, he had one injury, and then before that was 2020, and he was healthy the whole year. And then the only reason he played 50 games is because there were only 50 games that year. And then before that, 2019, he sat out. He was not injured in 2019. 2018, he was fully healthy. 2017, he was hurt. That was his third season in the league. Yes, first couple of years, there were some shakes, but people want to make it sound like he had a Kawhi career or an Embiid career. Bro, there is levels to this. There's like the Embiid Kawhi tier where it's like, yo, you don't play basketball ever. And then there's the Anthony Davis one. And I feel like people often put him in that same category, and he's not in that category of health. I never once worried about his health as a Laker. The second he left our organization, he got hurt, which I think is mainly because they rushed him back. He should not have been playing. We knew he was going to be out until after the All-Star break.
Yeah.
There's some.
I think he just felt the pressure. I think he felt the pressure to, show up for the fan base, and now there's rumors that he could miss the year.
Yeah, I'm saying 8 weeks, which is just awful.
That's a really devastating blow for Dallas fans.
Yeah.
Good luck with the Luka experience. He's a fantastic person. I've
I know.
known a lot
Really.
about him for years, and everything that just comes back is very, very caring person, very lovely teammate. Feels a little bit like him complaining to the refs makes people think he's a bit of a diva or a bit of an asshole or something. He really just really loves all of his teammates. When you're in that locker room with him, it's like no one touches you. That's he'll protect you even to that extent. Like if someone's gonna come at you, like he'll take that personally. So just a really good teammate, very good person, very very grounded, very
If you'll indulge me, one final question. What are your thoughts on complaining to refs?
Well, personally, I think it is, to the point that it is not counterproductive, it is a good idea. The minute it becomes counterproductive is when your team starts to feed off of your negative body language. So I believe there's a way to do it that is not destructive to your team. An example would be like after the play is done and I'm no longer required to go back, calmly walking up to the ref, not protesting wildly, like, what the hell? Come on.
So
None
when
of that
Draymond
shit.
like the way Draymond does it is not good.
So again, I think Draymond's complaining is weirdly funny, but also kind of charges him up and also riles him up to the point where like he can play well there. I also think he's on a really veteran team that doesn't feed off of it as much, or it's just kind of mentally checked it out. There are certain players, however, that their complaining feels like it sinks their team's morale or prevents them from getting back in defense. So as long as it doesn't prevent you from getting back in defense, and as long as you don't have a team that is overly impressionable to take note on it. See, like again, I'm personally of the belief that you should try to control what's in your control. The refs are not in your control. That being said, if you absolutely never complain about a whistle, you never plant the seed for, hey, give me the freaking ball. And it is really like the most efficient shot in the NBA is a free throw.
Yep.
In theory, unless you're Ben Simmons. Zinger. Okay, no, unless you are, oh my God, you know who was a really terrible free throw shooter that no one ever talks about being a terrible free throw shooter?
Who?
Scottie Pippen.
Was he really?
Yeah. Such a weird
bad?
thing. He was terrible. Like he was like below 70% for most of his career. That's actually a really freaking weird thing because, like, I feel like when we think about Scottie Pippen, we think about like a guy who could shoot, but it's like
Yeah.
his shooting mechanics and just free throw percentages, like, were not good. Unless I'm insane. I think I looked that up at some point, but I feel like I need to double confirm because I almost like don't believe it myself. And now I'm just like, wait, did I dream that he was a terrible free throw shooter? No, I didn't. Okay, as a rookie, 57.6%.
God damn.
66.8 the next year, 67.5, 70.6. He peaked out at 76%, then 66%, 66%, 71%, 68%, 70%, 77%, 72%. He never hit 80% except
He said,
for,
"This is who I am."
yeah. And then as a 37-year-old, never let anybody tell you can't improve late. As a 37-year-old with the Portland Trailblazers, he hit 81.8%
Hey.
before descending into 63% literally the next year.
Oh my
So
god.
yeah, so on his
What do you
career,
think
he's
happened between that, like the 81 to the 63? What did he change?
Larsa Pippen, bro. I don't know. But okay, so on his career, he was 70.4%. Again, for an all NBA caliber wing, that is
Yeah, no,
ridiculously
and
bad.
especially a guy who we
And
like
it's being
perceive
carried
as
by
like
his
a
37-year-old season. If you isolate that season out, he is easily below
yeah.
70%.
Wow.
That's
That's
nuts.
really bad. The reason I asked the Draymond thing is because I think that it's one of like his greatest assets is the fact that he's the most uniquely refereed player in the NBA. I have never seen a basketball player get away with more than Draymond Green. I
You
literally
are kidding me.
no. Oh
A
my god. Oh my.
Lakers fan talking about the have you
Oh
looked
my
at the
god.
differential?
See, this I can never comprehend. This whole thing where it's like, oh, the Lakers get so many more foul calls. I I, I beg you,
Okay.
watch the Lakers games and tell me which ones are like not calls and we're like
Okay.
you're like, oh, we're getting
Okay,
those.
fair enough. You have a lot of players who historically have generated a lot of, rim pressure and
Yeah.
actually do that. I will say, however, that at one point early in the season, I believe about 18 to 19 games into the season, I looked at expected wins and wins. And this was a very interesting stat because there was a team, the Sacramento Kings, that were 4 wins below their expected wins. And then there was a team like the Lakers that had an expected win total, I believe, of 12 and had somehow mustered together 16 wins. And I'm like, man, the analytics are flawed. This was by far and away, +4 was by far and away the best mark in the league. And I checked it for previous years and it seemed to always favor the Lakers. And I didn't understand why. But, it must be because they get a lot of calls that they deserve. Dude, I have believe me, I have actively rooted against the Lakers so many times as a Raptor fan, and I've just been like, okay, like where's the phantom call going to come now? And it's like it comes, and look, I get it. Look, the league has a priority for the Lakers and the Celtics and the Knicks, and they have a priority towards stars. What I was thinking today, as Luka was bitching to the refs about something, because he was like, he kind of does this like head shake,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I know
he's
what
just
spot you're
like,
talking about.
come
Yeah.
on. And I was just thinking to myself, like, do referees take shots now? They're refereeing a game where the Lakers have LeBron and Luka. Like, I want the Lakers to stop pussyfooting around and just go all in. I need y'all to trade for Draymond Green too. Okay,
Dude, I've been okay. So I am a big Draymond
do
Green fan. I
this,
love Draymond
all
Green.
3 of them
So
at the
I
same
think it's
time,
an
and then have
excellent
them
idea.
all complain in unison.
Dude,
Like,
I think honestly, we could break the free throw record. We could obliterate it. I think we would also get the most techs in the league, but I think it would be greatly offset by the number of free throws we earned. One thing I want to add, DeAndre Hunter averages more free throws a game than LeBron James. I'll close on that. DeAndre Hunter, a man whose on-ball possessions consist largely of handoffs and cuts and spot-ups, averages more free throws per game than LeBron Raymond James. That is a real statistic.
That just kind of sounds like you're cooking LeBron James. I mean, I'm just letting you
Because
know.
of course, it's LeBron. LeBron's not driving to the rim. LeBron, and if you look at the guys who average a comparable number of drives as LeBron, fewest free throws in the league of people who are within the same number of drives as him. So again, I totally get the outside perspective that, hey, it's Lakers, you'll get timely calls. But I want to say on the aggregate, we don't get significantly more calls than the ones we earn. Like this, I had this conversation with some Raptors fan, and it was that they were talking about how Austin Reeves gets a lot of calls that like he doesn't deserve. Austin Reeves just has mastered that art of foul baiting.
Yeah, he's very
It's
good at
part
it.
of how you win regular season games. It's life, guys.
But you know, like that's the anchoring bias in effect, right? If you believe
True.
something to be true, right,
Very
you're gonna
true.
keep seeing it more and more, right? So if I believe, like for instance, I'll give you an example. Let's say that I have intel or hear a rumor that referee X is racist, right?
Yeah.
Really just loves white players. I swear to God, every single time that referee calls a foul in favor of a white player, I'm gonna be like, see, racist. But if the referee calls a foul that disproves the racism, well, not that you
Yeah.
can disprove racism by that, but let's just say they call a foul on Austin Reeves, I'll be like, oh, they're trying to throw me off the scent of the racism.
Yes,
You know,
they've
they're
heard that there was a leak.
Exactly. So yeah, so it's very, very important. And I think like the larger point about like the Brandon Ingram, you know, weed, whatever,
Yeah.
stoner stuff, Scottie Barnes' work ethic, all of this stuff, love of the game, questions about certain
Yeah.
players. I think these things need to be so delicately handled because once people have that sort of frame of reference, now everything is viewed through that prism, right? And it's like, if I believe that Brandon Ingram, let's just say, forget about weed. Let's say let's say I think he has a drinking problem. Now every
Sure.
bad game is so immediately you just resort to, well, he must have gotten drunk last night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's such a weird thing, but like, yeah, reputations are so important. You know, my uncle once said this really smart thing to me. He said, you know, two men go into a bar, right? They both have a whiskey. One has a job, one's been unemployed for 6 months. One is a social drinker, the other one's a drunk.
Yeah.
But they both had the same one whiskey, right? The context around it is completely different though. And that's just how our societies sort of are built to judge players. So yeah. Anyway, Sahil, thanks a lot for calling in,
Dude,
man. And
Had a
appreciate
great
you.
time. Yep.
Great
Appreciate you.
conversation, man. Cheers. Have a great one. Okay, thanks a lot to Sahil for coming on. Definitely go follow him on X. Big night for the Los Angeles Lakers, man. I do want to share one thing with you since we did touch on Brandon Ingram. I want to share with you what Antonio Daniel said about Brandon Ingram, and this is going to be the end of the show. So if you've already listened to this on X, you can just tune out at this point. I would appreciate if y'all give this video a like. We have been live streaming for 2 hours and 37 minutes, and I do believe that this conversation offered a lot of value to you. Do you know how you can offer value back? 2 things. Like this video. Wait, 3 things. Like this video, subscribe to this video. Wait, 4 things. I'm sorry. Like this video, subscribe to this video. I'm sorry, I'm asking for a lot. Like this video, subscribe to this video if you're not subscribed. Definitely tell a cinema lover in your life about the Pendance Film Festival, which I'm supposed to be working on right now, but I'm clearly procrastinating on, but good things are happening. And also let them know about Pensare Basketball. Maybe you know a basketball fan who needs a place to hang after every game. We got you covered after every single Raptor game, win or loss. And we're going to get you covered with a lot of draft stuff after the Pendance Film Festival. But this is what Antonio Daniels had to say. Big shout outs to one of our community members who actually told me, go check out NBA Radio. I literally signed up for Sirius XM just to be able to listen to this. And I just peeled out a little bit of it for y'all that I thought was really interesting about who Brandon Ingram is as a human being. And I think you're going to really like it.
I understand that it's the business of basketball. I get it. It sucks. I'll say this from a player perspective, and now from an analyst perspective, it sucks when business gets in the way of good people having to move on and change venues. Brandon Ingram is not just BI. You know, his dad, Donald Ingram, they are stand-up, first-class, humble, professional human beings. And he works his tail off. He keeps his head down. BI is the type of guy that when he comes into an arena in the Smoothie King Center, everybody that he sees on the way to his car, to his locker, he'll fist bump and acknowledge. That says a lot. That says a lot. And again, I understand this is the business of basketball. So for me, it's not even about the trade. It's about the fact that, and I told his dad yesterday, it's been an honor. It truly has been an honor to cover Brandon Ingram for the 5.5 years that he's been here and that I've been here. Stand up, first class individual, man. I wish him all the best in Toronto. And it sucks to see, and you know this, Rob, you will know this. You can understand what I'm about to say. When people embrace the city and the city embraces them and are happy to be in that city, it sucks when those people have to move on.
Especially New Orleans,
Right.
as I know a very tight-knit community.
Right.
One of the smallest markets, if not the smallest market in the NBA, population-wise, size-wise. And then when you have someone that's with the franchise for 5.5 years, that in NBA years is the equivalent of dog years, right? So when your dog is 7, they're really 49 years old in human years, right? 5.5 years in the NBA. Who stays past 2-3 years on any team anymore?
Right.
So when you are the main piece of a major Anthony Davis blockbuster 5+ years ago, and then you stick around with the franchise for as long as he did, and it sounds like he contributed to the community. Everyone, he knew everyone's first name.
Anyway, I just wanted to share that with y'all. I think he's going to be a really great fit. Obviously, some Raptor fans are very excited, some are not. But there's a lot of people in the media, Josh Lewenberg, Sid Sixero. There's been a lot of people that had a really bad reaction to it and haven't really walked it back. JD Bunkus. There's some people who had a bit of a bad reaction, but have walked it back a little bit now that they understand the vision. To those people wondering, no, Brandon Ingram is not going to play for the Raptors for at least a month, 3 weeks-ish. And, you know, I hope the culture in the city and will embrace him when he does. Obviously, this move was not about this year. This move was about next year and going forward, building talent, getting talent in the door, and we'll see how this looks. And yes, Jacoby Walter is balling. If you've looked at his numbers over the last 6 games, this is a guy who's actually putting together a pretty solid what's BI's average? I don't know what average means. Average what? So yeah, like if you look at what Jacoby is doing this year, I think, you know, it's trending up. His defense, his physicality, his shooting is now, you know, he's 40% over the last 6 games, 47% from the field, 12 points per game, 24 minutes per game. Crunch the numbers, and I just find myself very impressed with what he's doing, right? So overall, I really think that the Raptors are building something very special here. I'll be curious to see this summer how, you know, they manage their glut of wings, because they do have a lot of wings. But yeah, overall, this video, 2 hours, 42 minutes in, was supposed to be about the Lakers. It ended up becoming a bit of a hodgepodge about everything. I hope you guys liked the video, man. I'm going to try to add some timestamps just because of how, you know, chaotic and, you know, crazy we were up and down. And I just think we covered a lot of really, really good points. So big shout outs to Sahil. Big shout outs to all of you for staying up with us until 3:51 a.m. That's commitment to basketball, man. I mean, after 3 hours on the panel, to do another 3 hours on this that's a lot of basketball in one day. Not to mention 3 hours of watching the Lakers game. That's 9 hours of basketball today. Wow. This festival ain't going to run itself, man. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Enjoy yourselves.